Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very exciting Big Finish fans. We're travelling all the way back to 2005 Big Finish style, looking at the Ninth Doctor's first box set. Well, Christopher Eccleston's first box set in the form of Ravagers by Nicholas Briggs. Now I'm joined by some lovely people tonight. It feels like a very classic Big Finish fan. So I'm joined with Adam.
Hello there, everybody. Hope everyone's having a splendid evening.
I'm joined with Luke.
Good evening, everyone.
And I'm joined by the Series 1 connoisseur, the person who's lived and breathed Series 1 over the past few months. It is James.
Hello.
So, while we wait for a few people to join, I think it'd be a good little way to start is what have we been doing? How have we been keeping ourselves busy, whether it be reading, listening, watching? So, Adam, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy over the past few weeks or lockdown, really?
It's mainly comprised of finishing my degree at university in film production and stuff like that. But in terms of Doctor Who, yeah, to be honest, it's all been a bit of everything. Like rewatching a classic. I remember, I think I watched the Sea Devils a few weeks back, and yeah, always a good shout. Bit of Perry, bit of Baker, bit of McCoy, sort of what have you. And then for Big Finish wise, I've enjoyed the Dalek Universe stuff. I decided to start that off as well, and that's off to a cracking start. And I think another highlight, I suppose, this year, Big Finish wise, I really enjoyed Return of the Cybermen, the Lost Story. I found that quite very fascinating, sort of what was sort of altered and how that kind of original version was and how it was adapted and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's general gist of things. But yeah, it's been pretty good, I'd say. Yeah.
I mean, are you excited for season 24? Because you're a big fan of Dragonfire, so are you excited to get a Blu-ray?
Yeah, that's coming out soon. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think the trailer, the 24 carat trailer, just sold me in and of itself. The fact they got Edward Peel back as well, who's Kane in the story, played like sort of a distant relative of the. Yeah, I think just the special features, and even they dropped the trailer very recently. The sort of I think by Benjamin Cook did like a trailer for that season, and it was now going to be 21st of June, which is only a few weeks away now. So yeah, I'm massively looking forward to that. I've loved the collection so far. I think season 8, that was a great set of special features and a great packaging, great box of brilliant Pertwee goodness, which I'm sure you've enjoyed being a Pertwee fan.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll do a stream on it soon.
I thought you were about to pick it up then. Show us all.
No. Yeah, I mean, the good thing about these Blu-ray box sets is that it gives you the chance to reappraise, reevaluate. And season 24, not well loved, but I'm sure the special features will definitely make up for it and make us see these new stories in a new light. So, James, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
I've been sleeping, quite frankly, because I finished my degree last Friday morning at 7 a.m. Was up all night. Because obviously me and you met up, didn't we?
Yeah, last Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, so that was our first meeting since was it November 2019 or was it October 2019? Yeah, because we went to Christopher Eccleston's book signing. That was the last time we met up, and then we re-met on the day of Ravagers, Christopher Eccleston's return. So it was a nice little bookends, really.
Full circle.
Yeah. Quite poetic, that, when you think about it.
So that was cool because I woke up that morning and was like, right, I'm going to download this. And I listened to Sphere of Freedom before I went on the train to see you. And yeah, that was a really great day, I think. Just lots of, it's a very positive box set. And I think that's what a lot of people need right now. So yeah, no, that's cool. As per Doctor Who, nothing much outside of that. I've started reading The Clockwise Man after I finish Ravagers because I just want a little bit more Eccleston because I've not read those novels before. Well, mainly just never had the time really because I bought them all a few years ago. So yeah, it's just catching up with them. I think really, I'll probably speak a lot more, but later. But just because it's solo Eccleston, you do have a constant reminder in this box set, even though it's super enjoyable. There's something missing. There's something missing. He doesn't have his best friend, so it's really cool for me to just go in a book and see the Doctor and Rose in these brand new situations, and it's really fun. It different perspective, I think it gives as well, because obviously when the writers were probably writing those books, series 1 hadn't came out. So when they're given the brief of like, oh, the Ninth Doctor has to be macho, he's like shoving people around and like fighting them, which he doesn't really do in series 1.
He is from Salford, and Salford's pretty rough, so
you would know as the Salford contour.
I know.
But yeah, no. Yeah, he only really fights somebody he fights the Auton in Rose, and then he fights the guards in Bad Wolf. Yeah, so it's weird, how it's such a different Doctor. Writers have to take, big different approaches and stuff, So yeah, it's a cool little insight. But that's it for me, really.
All right, Luke, how about yourself?
Yeah, not been too bad. Just the usual routine, I suppose. Working, watching the occasional Doctor Who DVD or Blu-ray if it has been blessed with that upgrade so far. And then, of course, some Big Finish 2, Ravagers, obviously. And recently, my most recent one is the Third Doctor Adventures Unzal incursion. Haven't quite got round to the golf yet, other than the 3-part one they gave us. But yeah, I imagine we might end up talking about that some other time, so won't say too much here. But that was a very enjoyable way to spend a couple of hours. With the old classic sting in there from Ambassadors of Death, really just to evoke that era. It's definitely one that evokes the era very well. The whole sound design done by Benji Clifford is superb on that set. But yeah, other than that, I suppose outside of the realm of Doctor, I've really been enjoying Star Wars The Bad Batch recently, the new animated show they've got going on Disney+. I've been having a great time with that, getting into it. Yeah, that's pretty much me covered.
I mean, much like yourself, I've been diving into Third Doctor Volume 7, which has been a sheer delight, especially Episode 2 of the Unzal incursion. Because it reminded me very much of Inferno Episode 3, which to me was the episode what sold me as a Third Doctor fan, that whole sort of Bessie car chase sequence. So it made me a little bit teary-eyed when I listened to that, because I was like, oh, that's proper Pertwee bit. But yeah, other than that, that's just basically me, just enjoying a bit of a break.
You two have really praised that box set. Like, would you say it's the strongest so far, without saying too much?
I wouldn't say it's the strongest so far.
Mm.
I would say it's definitely top 3, maybe. Definitely top 3.
Have you listened to Golf then?
No, I've not listened to the Golf yet. I finished the Unzal incursion this morning. But that's a really strong story. I mean, Volume 4...
Do you enjoy that little tease at the end?
Oh,
without saying too much.
Of who it could be behind it all. Yeah. I mean, that's very ambiguous. It's not a spoiler because it's not really said who it is, but it's just very left to your own imagination, so not really spoilers.
Because it's a post-credit scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because a few people have missed it, I saw on Twitter, so I think it's good to mention, there is one that stays till the end of the credits, like a Marvel movie.
I mean, there's quite a few sort of pre-credit scenes, like the Echoes of Extinction vinyl, that had a little extra thing on the end of each story, which I think people might have missed. It's like just an extra line, but it's worth staying till the end.
You even get a little tease of it earlier on, like you get half the line, and then but I won't say any more. But I think another one was what was that First Doctor Across the Darkened City? I think it is Companion Chronicle. That has a quite good end credit scene. It's the one where Stephen and the Dalek are trapped in the city. Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember which it is. It's been a while since I've actually listened to that. So I can't quite remember it. But you've got that weird sort of First Doctor Time War thing. That's in the 4th story, isn't it?
That comes into play.
Yeah.
You get like little bits of it throughout the set, but it's not really anything worthy of note. It's just a sound effect that repeats the seeing you've just listened for some odd reason.
Okay, so I think that's that section all wrapped up. So we've got a little bit of news to cover because we've been talking about the Third Doctor. We've had a bit of news on Volume 8 coming out in October, which sounds like a nice little Halloween, Christmas special. We've got the return of the Draconians with Joe, and we've got Sarah Jane and Briggs story. So what do you think of that? So Luke?
Yes, I'm a big fan of Frontier in Space, so Conspiracy in Space sounds very exciting to me. Going back into that world, really exploring the Draconians a bit more, and even just that title, Conspiracy in Space, it's very authentic Third Doctor stuff, isn't it? You know, you got Colony, you got Frontier, and now we're completing that little trilogy in a way, I suppose, with Conspiracy in Space. So that one sounds quite exciting. And also the Devil's Hoofprints, because I remember when we first got the announcement for Volume 7, there was part of me that was disappointed that we weren't getting Sarah and the Brig just yet. So I'm glad we didn't have too much longer to wait before we finally got that. And that seems like another very curious story and somewhat similar vein to The Demons, maybe. I think it has been said that maybe these two stories would have worked better the other way around, having the Third Doctor and Sarah revisiting a planet from Joe's time, similar to what we had with the two Peladon tales, and those two matching up. But at the same time, then you do end up with a case of, is the Devil's Hoofprints going to be too similar to the Demons with Joe there as well? But yeah, hopefully it's just like the way it's set up, and when we actually get into listening to it, the stories do diverge quite a bit and have some very different flavours to them. Also, it's around October time, night's going to be drawing in. We're going to be not quite near Christmas yet, but Big Finish tend to drop the occasional little Christmas special around October time, like they did for Merry Christmas, Mr. Jago, and the Ravenous 2, yes, with Better Watch Out and Fairy Tale of Salzburg. So hopefully this will be another story in the vein of that and give us a good Third Doctor Christmas special of sorts.
I mean, we did have a wonderful little Third Doctor Christmas special in the form of the Christmas Dimension, which, if you can find it, definitely recommend it. It's like a subscriber short trip. So if you're subscribed and you've got Absolute Power or Quicksilver in your subscription, then check it out. It's a nice little fun little half an hour season 7 Christmas special. Adam, does this release sort of tickle you at all?
Well, I was just sort of looking at the thing, and I realised one of the writer credits is Robert Valentine, who I quite enjoyed. I believe he did the Shadow of the Sun lockdown Fourth Doctor thing, and I think he's an excellent writer. I've not had a chance to listen to the end of the beginning, which I know he wrote out the last bit of the monthly range, but I know, like, you know, I'm quite a fan of this writer because I think he's sort of fairly new, I would say, to Big Finish. I think for the last sort of few years.
Within the past
Shadow of the Sun was one of his first.
Yeah, one of his first, and I think he follows me on Twitter, so, you know. But yeah, as you were saying, like how Conspiracy Space is almost like Frontier, and then Devil's Hoofprints sort of. There is that kind of sort of look at reading the synopsis. They do sound very Third Doctor-y, and I think sort of what they did, Big Finish. I think they posted a video interview with Katie and Tim, which I very much enjoyed, and of course with today's live stream, I did enjoy the Christopher Eccleston one. They did. I like what they do with those because they've dropped a few fairly recently on YouTube, like some nice sort of Q&As that, you know, people send in on Twitter or what have you, and then they get answered. They're fun sort of 5-10 minute stuff, and like the Katie and Tim one was really lovely.
Yeah, they're a great way of sort of whetting your appetite and knowing more about the person behind the releases, really. So I do enjoy it, and it's a great way for people on Twitter to interact with Big Finish, and Big Finish seem to be quite pushy with interacting with people on Twitter, which is great, really, to know that they're getting that response, and it makes it feel like one big sort of lovely community bubble of Big Finishness, really.
It's also nice to see them as well, because obviously we hear them a lot on the interviews, behind the scenes stuff that we get on the audios, but to actually see them there answering the questions, there's something extra special about that, I feel.
Yeah, particularly the Chris one, I would say. It's great to see him in a studio, and it's like, wow, it's It's sort of it hit that bit home even more because you've seen like pictures and stuff like that, but him actually being there doing a Q&A in the studio, it was great.
Well, it's great to see Chris actually having fun with a visual, really, instead of just hearing it with his voice. So yeah, it's lovely, really.
Yeah. It's also, with a lot of interviews, you have the interviewer there and you have that back and forth between them. And you sort of you're on the outside looking in. But with this, you've got Chris looking at the camera to you as he answers the questions. And it very much feels just that little bit more personal.
I mean, definitely. For me, with the third Doctor volume 8, just to go back onto that, instead of us gushing over videos, I personally agree with sort of Sarah being in the Draconian story, because if you look how Sarah's presented in season 11, she's very sort of headstrong, woman's lib sort of stuff, especially with Paladin. And I could definitely see her sort of siding with sort of the Draconian side, because I think we've got a female Draconian villain lead character within it.
So I think Lady Zin was what they... Lady Zin.
So I think that going up against the third Doctor, because it's still early days for Free and Sarah, it would be a great way to sort of test that dynamic and see why that dynamic's so strong and why it flourished with Tom, really. So I think that would have been great. But the Devil's Hoofprint, very exciting. Seems like quite a quintessential third Doctor story, which I can't wait to dive into in October. How about yourself, James? Does this release interest you?
Oh, I wish I got the bundle. Really good, because I hadn't listened to a third Doctor adventure until they released that part 1 of The Gulf, which I didn't get the Cyberman Lost story, so it's my first experience with Sadie Miller. And wow, she gets it like so well, like, because obviously, she's watched her mum on all those stories all her life, that it's spoken about in 30 Years in the TARDIS, showing her daughter all these stories. And, I feel one quality she really excels at that makes me smile is Sarah's poutiness. I like how she can kind of, cross her arms and be very cross. And I feel that we can really get that in that kind of, in that wintry, cold, dark, damp environment. Like, why have you brought me here, Doctor? I really can't wait for that, because she has funny lines like that in The Gulf with how wet and cold it is. So just I think very exciting just to have more. I think Sarah Jane played so authentically and so well. The Draconian story, I think I was like you, swap them rounds, but I think it's cool to have Sarah have that gothic horror story the way that Jo has the demons, because we don't have that in season 11. Really, the closest we really have is Monster of Peladon.
The start of Death to a Dalek is quite gothic with the way Eccleston shot, with sort of in the dark with all the mist. And it's
because that's more maybe 10 minutes.
I'd more maybe class that as, say, atmospheric. I wouldn't exactly call it entirely gothic. I think gothic and Doctor Who is that striking kind of Christian imagery and, say, demons and stuff. And the lightning cracking and, churches and priests, get inside, all that stuff. Brilliant stuff. And I can't wait for that 1855. I believe it's set, isn't it? I think that's a great setting. I think for that kind of demon style of, What are you going to say?
Not quite set there. It's like that was when the original mystery took place. And then it's in the contemporary times. So 1970s. Where they're investigating,
so it's going to be a lot like the Demons. So they take all the vans and unit invade like this poor little town. I'm looking forward to that, because just putting Sarah in that environment, I think that'd be really cool. A nice precursor, I guess, to season 13 and such as well, when the Tom Biggs era starts to get a little more darker as well. So
I suppose it could be like a Terror of the Zygons kind of style story, couldn't it?
Yeah. I think the Brigadier will have some fun lines in there. They're just cold and damp. I'm looking forward to that. And the Conspiracy in Space, that's a great title, isn't it? It reminds a lot of me of just like Doctor Who and the Space War. You know what I mean? It feels like kind of a sequel in that respect. And I think one of the cool things, when they do the first, second, third, or even fourth Doctors, you apply modern sensibilities to it. So, like in the first Doctor Adventures, which I've just started listening to, I listened to Return to Skaro. and you have female scientists and such, which you didn't get back in the day. So I feel you can explore female draconians. How will Joe react around them and relate? And I feel we could
Well,
really
you've got
get some
that,
character.
PDA book, haven't you? Catastrophe with Free and Joe
Mhm.
Draconians. So I'll be interested
Yeah.
to check that out.
I think that'll be great for Katie as well, because she knows it was John's favourite monster, and she's not got the chance to be alongside them, really. The Draconians only really had 2 stories, Bernie Summerfield, and then one of those kind of free ones, wasn't it?
Paper cuts, isn't
yeah,
it?
Paper cuts,
The-
yeah, with the Sixth Doctor, yeah, and Charlie.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be good for Katie. I think it's such a shame with COVID and such, recording at home. It would have been fab. And we will most definitely get one in the future, but just a photo of them against the white Big Finish background. Do you know their press photos of Katie and Sadie? I feel that would be really good because you could put that alongside the photos of Liz and Katie from Death of the Doctor, just kind of the next generation kind of deal. But yeah, no, I think that'd be really lovely. Yeah. Well, one day for the future, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more Sarah Jane. I think.
Oh,
Definitely.
yeah.
And more Joe, of course.
Feel wrong not to have more Sarah now. We've got Sadie, who does, like you say, such a wonderful job.
Just a quick question for you guys.
I think they're probably.
Oh, go on.
I was just going to say they probably already recorded loads with the Fourth Doctor, given how far in advance to get those done.
Definitely. So with the Third Doctor stuff, do you think that it looks like just the way it's going forward, Sarah's going to be a constant and sort of catch up time, and then they're going to alternate Liz and Joe, or what's the deal with there is going to be? Do you think we'll have a set that's Liz in one story and Joe in the other, or do you think Sarah's going to be the constant? What do you think?
I would like it to sort of alternate. So each box set you have like one Sarah, one Joe, then the next you have Liz, Joe. Then it's sort of you're keeping it fresh each box set really. So no eras neglected, because if we're getting 2 box sets a year, that's 4 stories. So I think we can start to cover that and maybe have like a solo Third Doctor and Briggs story, cover that sort of gap between season 10 and season 11, just so we're filling out different parts of the Third Doctor era. Because I would love to see the Third Doctor and the Brig on their own little adventure. I would love that sort of stuff to be explored more.
Yeah. Just them in the middle of nowhere, maybe on an alien planet, just the 2 of them bickering for 2 hours, please.
I'd love for them. I'd love for them to try something similar to Frontier in Space and Planet of the Daleks, where you have those 2 interconnected 6-part stories. Do that instead with 2 4-part stories and see what they can do there with 2 different writers, and have this larger scale, and really make use of that box set format.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all the news wrapped up, unless you want to quickly talk about Unit Nemesis. That's got the 11 in, it's got the Curator in.
Oh.
Yeah. Got Harry
in. Can have a quick natter.
Have a quick natter about it. How do you feel about that? Because obviously we knew it was Unit and Harry, and the Fourth Doctor's no companion, Naomi, and now we've got the 11 and the Curator added. So how do we feel about that?
I mean, it's interesting the way they're very open to exploring the Curator, which I think maybe even 5 years ago, I think that was a far away, distant dream, I guess. So I think it's cool. I really like the way they handle the Curator and Stranded.
I was just going to say, they handle the Stranded, the Curator and Stranded really well. And I think all of us have listened to Stranded here.
Yeah. Or Adam, have you?
Just the first one. Just the first box set.
I know what the Curator's like.
I know what Tom's like as well. Like if you see him at convention stuff like that, I kind of feel like he does add a lot of Tom to that kind of to the character, as well as the writers sort of doing their own thing as well, because they know Tom and for writing the Fourth Doctor and stuff.
It makes sense to have him here as well, because obviously it's tying into that Day of the Doctor with Kate and Osgood being around there. So I think it makes sense that they would know him and work alongside him occasionally.
Interesting. It's going to be a long 4-part series, 4 box set series, which is new for the unit range really. The Ice Warriors are constant because they're on all the artwork for like the main.
I think they're just in the one box. I think they change
in each box.
I think.
They only seem
Yeah.
to be in one episode of it. Like looking at the synopsises, they only seem to be in the second episode, Fire and Ice. There's no mention of.
Because it's strange, because just it seems like the big hook, really. But yeah, I think it could be cool having Harry maybe come across the crate. He's like, hey, I think I know you. He's like, oh, I'm sure you do. He's a jelly baby, stuff like that. But no, I don't think I'll pick it up. The unit stuff just doesn't really appeal to me personally, but it's popular with very other people. So yeah, just glad they enjoy it.
I think it's strange how long it's been since we last had one. Like, to be fair, it hasn't been that long. I think April 2019 was Unit Incursions, but it feels so long ago now.
Yeah, I mean, the unit stuff for me is kind of cherry pick, but because it's got Tom in, I do feel quite inclined to get it, and I'm a big Ice Warrior fanboy, so I am very tempted to at least try the first box out just to see how it goes, really.
I'm sort of like you with that, on top of the fact that I've enjoyed Christopher Naylor's Harry Sullivan. I think, he was one of the highlights from listening to Return of the Cybermen. So, and he's really cool on Twitter as well. So, like, I think more of that. And of course, he's going to be crossing over into the Fourth Doctor stuff later with Naomi as well. So, yeah, I'm already sold with Christopher's Harry.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely going to be picking up that series 13 of Fourth Doctor Adventures with the two of them. So I almost feel obliged to get this just to connect those dots eventually, see what it's like.
Just to get a little taster of what that dynamic is going to be like.
Yeah, that's going to be. So I imagine this is going to be set after that in a way, or during maybe. Hard to say what's quite going on with it.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to judge at this minute. It's something to do with time, there's not something like that. So, why is Harry alive in 2020? I don't know. It's something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, and certainly the synopsis doesn't make it seem like a big shock to Osgood and Kate, because it seems like they're just going over to, where is it? Australia, I think. Yeah, like Osgood's just being sent over to Australia to visit Naomi and Harry for whatever reason. So, yeah, that's good. There's certainly a mystery going on there.
I'm sure we'll find out eventually. So I think that's covered all the news. So it's time to get on to the main event of this hangout or podcast talk or whatever. And that is, of course, talking about Ravagers with the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston's debut return as the Doctor, a thing what we could only dream of. And I'm sure we'll find out whether, our wishes, whether we were right to wish for it and see if it turned out good, or we should have just stayed well clear from it. But first, before we dive into that, we've got a bit of high-techness. We've got a bit of a trailer to show from the actual adventures to give us a taste of what to expect over the next 4 box sets with the Ninth Doctor. So hopefully the sound works. If not, enjoy the pretty visuals, and we'll see you in a minute and talk about the trailer itself. So enjoy the trailer. I'm sure we've all seen it loads of times, but you can enjoy it another time. It's a bloody good trailer. So enjoy Big Finish's take on the Ninth Doctor adventures.
Humanity, locked on a single planet, one time, one place. I don't know how you stand it. It's a big universe out there, and you haven't even scratched the surface. Well, it's time to change that. You're going to hear amazing things. You'll go from the Firth of Forth to alien worlds, to the Sphere of Freedom and a giant necropolis. You'll hear musicians in Paris play deadly games, meet monsters on movie sets and the real Macbeth. There'll be new enemies and old friends, people to lose and people to save, and every day the universe at stake. I can't promise it'll be safe. In fact, it'll be very dangerous indeed. But it'll be the greatest journey you'll ever take, I promise you. It'll be fantastic. So tell me, do you want to come on board?
that is the trailer for the Ninth Doctor. Hope you enjoyed it because it is a brilliant trailer. So, lads, what do you think of the trailer for the Ninth Doctor Adventures? Does it feel like a trip of a lifetime? Because you can see the trailers really ripping off that with sort of the explosion in the corridor. It's all pretty exciting stuff. So, James, what do you make of the trailer?
Oh, it's great. I think they give Chris a fantastic monologue. That's something he seems to be very interested in at this stage in his career. If you watch the behind the scenes stuff he's done, especially like Q&A, that's one where he mentions he wants to do like Macbeth and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely. So, yeah, it's cool that he's getting an actual story with the real Macbeth. That's gonna be. I'm looking forward to that because that's going to be, I think, something that Chris really wants to dive into. The visuals are perfect. They're great. I love all like little references. There's a little bomb from Dalek Invasion Earth around 50 AD, which is just.
I think the Emperor
in the background.
Evil as well, isn't it? Like the background.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, like one of the iron girders is meant to be like a little representation of that, and the TV movie console as well.
Oh, cool.
Like a little reference to that as well.
Yeah, it feels so authentic. I like how it plays on the trip of a lifetime at the end. And of course, got the Cyberman, which is interesting. Very lovely design. I really hope that's the one that
as well.
Yeah.
Where stick around for the end and you get a nice little treat, really.
Yeah, and of course there's the music, which is beautiful. The music piece that is a reoccurring thing throughout the Ravagers box set. It's beautiful. I think it's the finest character theme they've done in Big Finish. I think it's gorgeous. It's got the kind of the heroic element of the character, but it's also embedded with the deep sadness, I think, as well. It's beautiful, really good. But yeah, cracking trailer.
Adam, what do you make of the trailer?
Yeah, it's beautifully done. Like the visuals were excellent. From what I remember, I think the monologue was written by John Dorney. I think I saw on Twitter. I think that might have been him, and he writes that very well. And it's so, hearing Chris sort of say the third and fourth, which I think is a reference to the Brigadier story that's going to be coming up as well, and the Cybermen, all the kind of the sort of different landmarks and all the places we're going to visit. Yeah, it's great. It's a great twist on the original trailer, done really well as like a loving tribute, but also a great look forward to what we can expect, really. And even just adding that little end credit surprise as well was, I think that was kind of chef kiss. That was like the perfect sort of topping on that cake. Yeah, it was superb. It was great that because it helped build that, because it was released on that release date. It really helped build that. It definitely, that trailer made it feel that day, that release day, feel so monumental. Like, this is it. The Ninth Doctor is back, and I think that trailer really, it pretty much stamped it right there.
One thing what I like about the trailer as well, that it started off like Rose, but we start going towards the Earth, but we soon zoom out because these stories aren't all grounded on Earth. We are moving further afield into, the deepest, darkest bits of space. So I think that is a really nice little homage to that. And I love the sort of visuals of 9 by the TARDIS with sort of the fiery sky, very much like End of the World, where Rose and the Doctor are looking at the Earth be burnt. So I think there's a few nice little Easter eggs to Series 1 within the trailer itself. So Luke, what do you make of the trailer?
Oh, it is a magical trailer, isn't it? I think Big Finish just keep upping themselves with these trailers. Like, compare this to what we had back in 2013, even, with the Light at the End trailer, where it's just these pictures coming towards you occasionally. But yeah, we've gone very far since then, and I mean, some better effects than what we had back in 2005, dare I say, with the Vortex there. It is just so evocative of the era, and I love how it really does feel like Christopher Eccleston is speaking as the Ninth Doctor directly to you, the viewer. It makes it feel like you're going to be the one going on these adventures with him, and that's what I quite like about what they're doing here. I got this feel with Ravagers as well, where it's just the Ninth Doctor, where you're almost the companion, is the closest I can say to it. And we've had solo Doctor stories before, but they've never quite had that kind of feel before, and I don't know what it is about this these sets and this trailer, but it does very much give me that feeling of the Ninth Doctor is grabbing my hands now and telling me to run instead. Which, I mean, how much more magical can it get? And the Cyberman tease at the end, brilliant stuff. I like that it's just going to be a single Cyberman story, it seems, and really delving much more into a character piece rather than a massive invasion by a force of Cybermen. And what a nice design as well. I think I wasn't expecting them to come up with their own design for this, because that's something they haven't really done before. I say only what's that one that was also like a web comic thing, Flash?
Oh, Real Time.
Real Time, yeah. But then that's kind of connected more to the BBC than Big Finish itself. So this is them instead coming up with their own Cyberman to really stamp on the Ninth Doctor era. It reminds me of some of those. Well, it's definitely inspired by some of that concept art you have for Rise of Cybermen Age of Steel, where they were looking, how do we bring the Cybermen into the 21st century? And this does very much feel like something partway in between what we got then in 2006 and what we had back in the classic series, particularly the 60s Cybermen. I think it's a mesh of two Wheel and the Age of Steel Cybermen for me. But yeah, enough about that design. I can't wait to see that on a cover though, eventually, or two covers if we have the individual one to go along with it. Yeah,
I'm sure it will get on both covers. I'm definitely sure it will.
Yeah, it'll be exciting times.
Yeah, because this whole box set, well, with Christopher Eccleston, such a big monumental occasion for us, especially because we're the generation of fans who were brought into the world of Doctor Who with Eccleston. So this is such a treat for us to be treated. It takes you back to when you first started discovering Doctor Who and thinking, wow, it just has that same sort of captivating feel that you just want all 4 box sets now, really.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't have that long to wait for them either. Like, it's only 3 months between each, and then got the 4th one by February next year.
Yeah, so it's strange to think that it'll be over in a blink of an eye, and I'm sure we'll hopefully get more box sets with Eccleston, because I'm sure he's had a wonderful time recording all these.
Yeah. One thing in the chat, we have a message from Cosmic Antics asking if we got the Vine. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to do a little cheeky segue there. We're going to go into the chat now. But as soon as we're on there, go on then, Luke.
Yeah, I did get the vinyl, and I have not received it in the post yet. I'm still even waiting for my Dark Universe 1 vinyl, which came out last. Although everyone is, this isn't just me. Like, no one has got their vinyls yet, sadly.
I ordered the vinyl as well. I was a bit of a madman and got the CD as well because it's a big occasion. It was something you could only dream of happening, and so for me it felt right to go all out on Eccleston, hence why he put his own live stream.
Did you get both bundles?
I did, yeah.
Or have you just...
I did. Cause it just works out
200 quid.
It works out cheap
in
the end. I know I'm a madman, but it's got to be done. It's Eccleston. But speaking of the Ninth Doctor, continuing with the chat, I mean, if you've got any questions throughout the live stream, we're going to have little breaks from the main topic of talking about the Ninth Doctor. So if you've got any comments or little things about Ravagers, then we'll read out your comment, just so we're engaging with you a lot more. So we've got a comment by Benjamin James Miller. I'm hoping that the Ninth Doctor would go up against the Sontarans and the Nymons. So Adam, you're a bit of an expert on the Nymons. How do you feel about that?
Well, only if there's 3 of them. No, it'd be quite fun, maybe, Ninth Doctor, either with the Nymons or some random, obviously, like, one-off classic Who monster or something, maybe one we sort of haven't really sort of had before, even something like, I know they're going to be in the Unibox, but something like the Ice Warriors, or, I think... It'd be quite fun. Even Mandrills, like I'm kind of just up for any kind of random. I think specifically more like the random kind of one-off, or there's like a couple of appearances. But I know you mentioned like some times as well, and that would be quite cool. Speaking of which, like Or you could say he almost sort of, but didn't really, because Dan Starkey's in this box set, the Ravagers one.
Yeah.
Which it's so strange to hear Dan Starkey in any other role other than like Sontarans, I suppose. So when he's playing like a rubber soldier, or, when he was the elf in Last Christmas, it's just kind of like I still kind of hear this it's sort of because that for me he's just kind of always stuck being a Sontaran.
Yeah. I mean, bring back Bataran Woodbeast, Eccleston and Tara.
Yeah, brilliant.
Have that. James, how do you feel about it? Oh, Luke, sorry, go on.
Oh no, sorry, James can go.
I think a Sontaran could work. Sort of like two old soldiers, kind of as enemies, and then maybe having to work together. But I don't want a focus on these box sets and feature box sets to just kind of be, oh, what monster can we put the Ninth Doctor with? Because I think the Ninth Doctor's a lot more than that. My dissertation was on completely just like, what is the meaning behind its representation, working class culture, sexuality, gender, all that stuff. And there are, I think, only do it if you can get the story, because I don't know, I made a tweet a while ago, I think it was Big Finish, saying, what monsters do you want to or not see with the Ninth Doctor? And I put the Cybermen. I didn't want to see the Ninth Doctor with the Cybermen, because in Dalek, it's like he's not seen the Cyberman since his early days as the Eighth Doctor. They're dead. Like, that's the reason that they reboot them in Series 2. It's because the Cybermen died out. Like, that's the reason. And it's like they've been dead that long. He kind of says, oh, they're an old friend. Oh, well, enemy. Kind of has to remind himself there. So yeah, I think the Cyberman could work, but like you do run the risk of just doing Dalek with villains. And I think that's the problem, but especially when the answer to a lot of it's like, oh, only have one. It's like, yeah, well, that was the point of Dalek. So I don't know. I think a Sontaran, I think could be really cool. I think a very tatty, worn out sort of classic series Sontaran. I think that'd be quite cool. But other than that, no, I want new monsters. I think new foes, new threats. Creative monsters that have an impact on the character, like the Gelth being stranded victims of the Time War, and people who take advantage of humanity, such as the Editor and the Jagrafess, and also the Slitheen, who sort of just pick up like the sludge of the galaxy. The leftovers. I feel there's a really big theme of that. With the Ninth Doctor's run. So I personally, I'd like a lot more of them, I think.
I mean, I was just thinking back to the Draconians, how Eccleston seems to suit sort of political-driven stories in a way.
You can have a debate.
Yeah, I feel like the Draconians are quite noble, and I feel like Eccleston would have a bit of a tiff for that. He's all for like working class or Paladin, like you said, Paladin. Eccleston Paladin would be interesting, because it'd be all for like miners and stuff like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And going up against sort of the Royal. So I feel like Eccleston in a Paladin story I would definitely be up for.
I feel like Eccleston on Draconia as well would be interesting to face up to the sexism of that society, because obviously you have the whole females are not permitted to speak, and sort of Pertwee being the diplomat that he is will go along with that. He's not for it, but he's not outright having a go at them for it, whereas Eccleston would be very much putting them in their place for that sort of comments like that.
I think you need to wait for Rose for that story. I think that'd be a great one. Whereas if females are not permitted to speak, just have a line like, she's going to slap you if she keeps calling her she from Dalek. I'd love something like that. But yeah, I think that's maybe my critique as well of solo Eccleston. You don't get the female experience, I don't think, in a way that with a recurring character, at least. Of course, you get it with, say, Nova, but I feel with the recurring character like Rose, who their motivations and character, I feel that's where I think that stuff can really shine. I'd love Rose on Draconia. I think that could be quite fun.
I think skipping ahead a bit, but we're getting the first episode of next set, Girl Deconstructed.
Yes.
Or is it Girl even in the title? So hopefully that'll give us a good female perspective as well.
And we've got a preview of that in a live stream that Big Finish did. With I don't know who was the company that they were working with on that.
It was the Brit Sci-Fi sort of weekend live stream, because I was catching up on a few sort of last weekend. They sort of the National Space Center, they do those what's it, Science of the Time Lord sort of conventions. So they sort of done like a weekend and stuff like that. I've tuned into, like, they did a panel with Sylvan Sophie, one with Colin and Nicola, one with Paul, Daphne, and Yuji, and so they've done like a bunch of different like panels, YouTube panels over the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool because the plot of it being like there's this girl and her atoms are being scattered into almost being invisible and very ethereal, and she's just crying out that to her dad. She calls the police to say she's missing. I'm like, that, what a plot that is. Very domestic. Love that. Very authentic series one. Written by Lisa McMullen. If you've listened to Torchwood Sync, I think if you like authenticity, I think she's the writer to go for.
Is that quite a series one style as well? Because that's
very yeah. Because I'm one of those weirdos who's like favorite series of Torchwood is series one for just like it's. I think it's got a wonderful theme of death and like what's beyond it, and I don't think any other series really goes beyond that rather than say drama and threat really. But I think that series one Torchwood focuses on just a very real world fear and delves into that, and they do that with Susie because her motivation for the glove was not wanting to die, and you get that in that story, and you also get Boomtown as well. There's musical cues that are very akin to Boomtown, and it fits into both their arcs. It fits into Bull and Phil Foch's arc of just getting by and just really wanting to get off this planet. It's just like she merged the two perfectly, and it was brilliant. So yeah, very authentic to both series one and up top two and Torchwood. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what Lisa McMullen does as well, because she does mention, that early RTD era. That's really in her primes, being a young woman, really, and I think that's very similar for all the writers of that series. Because I think Tim Foley tweeted being like, I was doing my exams during series one, so I think that's cool. It's the people. It's like our generation who get to really bring back the Ninth Doctor. I think that's really cool. A new perspective, a modern perspective, I think.
Luke, have you got a sort of wish list for the Ninth Doctor? Sontarans, 9-1s, how do you feel? Have you got like a little bucket list you'd like to see Big Finish take off?
Yeah, I've never really put too much thought into what I wanted. Other than I definitely did want a Cyberman face-off. I'm ashamed to say. I'm sorry, James, but
yeah,
it's just
what you want.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I love the Cybermen. I love the Ninth Doctor. Ninth Doctor Cybermen. What more can I get excited for? But yeah, it was not too much beyond that. We got the Brigadier coming as well in the fourth set. I'm looking forward to that, seeing two old soldiers together. The Ninth Doctor, fairly fresh out of the Time War, maybe now having a bit more of an understanding perspective with the Brig. It'll be interesting to see what route they go down there. And yeah, in terms of Sontarans, as the question asked, I think they could be quite interesting because, their first story is called The Time Warrior. We've got Ninth Doctor fresh out of the Time War. And so maybe there's something they could do there, and him just being even more fed up with their military antics than usual in this case. And we sort of get a bit of that in Ravagers as well, when he's coming up against these two different armies. But I think that's human, whereas with the Sontarans, they're literally bred for this. They glory in it. They love it so much. And so to have a Doctor who is has a very foul taste in his mouth when it comes to war coming up against them, I think there could be some exciting avenues to explore there with those two.
Speaking of soldiers, I think this is a good little segue into the first story, The Sphere of Freedom, where we see a group of Roman soldiers end up in the West End of London in 1959, I think, is it?
Yeah.
So the first story, again, all three stories are written by Nick Briggs. This is the Ninth Doctor's second trilogy, the first being the Slovene trilogy. Well, technically, you could argue this is the Ninth Doctor's first ever trilogy because this is pre-Rose. So, how do we feel as this as an opening story? I feel like this story was quite divisive because it's a very sporadic story. It's jumping all over the place because it's all about time eddies and all that sort of stuff with the manipulation of time. So, James, how did you feel this story opened the box set up?
It's strange because I think maybe in terms of meat of plot, this one's maybe the weakest, if that's what you're going in for. In terms of dialogue, at times, I don't think it's particularly strong. I think it really is when he meets the Romans. I really love that. Very authoritative. I think there's a few issues, but overall, I think this is one of my. I think this, weirdly enough, it's my favorite one of the set because its tone is perfect. It's really Eccleston's big, grand reintroduction to Big Finish, and it works so well with what they have him do. He gets to have comedy, he gets to have drama, he really gets everything that he wants to have, and he talks about in the behind the scenes of it's weird how I called upon these decisions that I made 15 years ago for this character, and that's great. That I think it works. There's a few little issues I kind of have, just because I really had to dissect Series 1 for over a year, where I can't view it as anything else than what appears. And one of those things is there's the focus on youth, and with that Series 1 through Rose. I feel that does lack in this box set. I find it very weird that there was a 2-minute conversation of the Ninth Doctor and this mysterious character sort of ragging on the youth. I was like, oh, that's weird. That doesn't fit his tone. But no, he works in being quite rude and such. That works. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Really did.
Adam, how about yourself?
Yeah, so Sphere of Freedom, I think sort of going into it, pressing the play, the fact we sort of introduced with this Ninth Doctor and Nova dynamic already sort of seemingly being established, and you kind of, I think, it was a nice sort of set, ease into it, and I did kind of wonder how they sort of, with the timey-wimey stuff, how they'd meet, so and eventually later on, you do get that kind of meeting, and I think the pre-credit sequence was brilliant in a way of sort of launching yourself into that adventure, which Eccleston and Camille maybe put. I want to say, they sort of bring you in quite well actually, and the time energy things, everything gets established really well, and then leading into the 2005 theme, then you're back into it pretty much. So that was great. Generally, I think it's well paced. It's a well paced story. I think all 3 parts are paced fairly well. I think maybe it's some food fight where things do drag, but the Sphere of Freedom I think was very good, and I didn't think that the jumping around was too bad. Actually, when it sort of jumped between Nova and Audrine, all that kind of elements of it, I didn't find it as sort of tedious as I thought I probably would. But so I think it's a nice sort of settle in to the box set, as me and Joe sort of talked about earlier. That kind of first sort of episode, that beginning stages, setting the pieces up ready for episode 2 and 3 to go further with it.
Yeah, I mean, just mentioning sort of the theme music, I think. I guess hearing the theme music just sends you right back, and I think that just gives me utter goosebumps. Having that sort of moment of the Doctor's sort of triumph at the beginning. It's a great way to reintroduce Eccleston's Doctor. He's sort of very much an anti-hero, isn't he? And throughout Series 1, we find him become the hero again. So it's great to sort of see him explore that within the actual story. So I think it's a good little opening. So Luke, how about yourself?
Yeah, similar to James, this is probably my favourite episode of the 3. Again, it's just something I could really vibe with. Maybe it's partially that excitement of hearing Eccleston again at last, and he is right back into it. He doesn't miss a beat whatsoever. It doesn't feel like he's been gone for 16 years. He just hits the ground running, has a lot of great dialogue throughout. I think there is, throughout the whole set, there are some awkward bits of dialogue in general that feel like they drag on a bit too long. But I can't.
I kind of feel
Nova.
like conversations should be as snappy as say they were in series 1, where, say, a conversation could be ended with just like a witty line or like a pop culture reference or something like that. It does kind of seem a lot of back and forth. I mean, I think not to take over your point.
Oh no, no.
I don't think the Ninth Doctor's poutiness is done that well throughout this entire set. I will admit, he does seem to be he says lots of things like, "Oh, why should I do that? Why are you doing this?" It's like he doesn't do that in series 1 a lot. He mostly just puts up a bit of a front. So maybe that is due, I think, what we were saying earlier. He feels a little bit too open, I guess, and maybe that's what makes these exchanges feel like they should end a lot sooner than they do.
Open with Audrey at the start, really.
Yes.
And I feel like he'd be more closed off with that, really.
Yeah, exactly, because obviously it's the audio medium. You can't exactly portray his shuntiness, I guess, through sound, because obviously it's all body acting, isn't it? So it I guess it is a difficult balance to find how he does that kind of brushing a person off, like he did with Rose, being like, "See, this is me," shunting off, all that stuff. So yeah, I guess it is maybe it is just the way of the beast, the medium.
There is a bit of a moment with Nova saying, "Why don't you just chundle off instead?" So it's kind of roles are reversed in that sense.
Yeah.
With that, so you kind of get a little bit of that, but it's very different to
yes,
what you get in Rose with that.
So what are you saying, Luke? Sorry.
Yeah, I suppose you do get a bit of that with the clip they released where they're on the bridge, and he said, "What's the left? It's Lieutenant something. What was his name?"
Lieutenant Faraday.
Yeah, Faraday. That's it. And he's very much being shunted off. So it's very much that he has more of a thing for the females. He's less likely to shunt them off, I suppose.
Yeah, I did enjoy that thing with Faraday. That was really good. That very genuine Ninth Doctor right there.
Yeah, but he still goes back for him when he has to. But he's dismissive. He acts dismissive, but he still cares deep down, I think. And you even get a bit of that in Cataclysm, but we'll talk about that more then. But yeah, just Sphere of Freedom, it's just a lot of fun. It doesn't need to have all the answers in it. That's what's got to come later. And so it's allowed to be a lot more free and just have a play about with the idea of time going awry, different things popping up in different locations. I love all the stuff with the Romans there. And I love how the set has a lot of it thematically about, people will do bad things but they're victims of the circumstances they're in. And the Ninth Doctor's not excusing it, but he also knows not to necessarily blame them for it. And so he's quite understanding from that point of view with the Romans. And yeah, there's some great lines there as well, where he's still being very authoritative with them. And it's that line from the trailer where he says, "You can stand here, if you stand here waving your swords and spears around, you'll be blown off the face of the planet." And, there's a lot of good lines like that Chris delivers pitch perfectly.
I quite like as well, and a bit of lines with a bit of nine sass when he's talking about the Romans Latin. Don't you posh boys know your Latin?
Yeah, that was
a good one. That was a great little bit.
Yeah, it's very much going back to the working class roots of this Doctor, really. And yeah, I just had a very good time with it. I would say that's all I really have to say about Sphere of Freedom. There's not too much in there to digest. It's a very short one. It's only 42 minutes, and you can just stick it on.
Quite short in general, isn't it? Because Sphere of Freedom's 42, and I think Cataclysm's 47. Then Food Fight's 54 minutes. So
I think it's only. I think the whole set's only about 5 or 10 minutes longer than something like, say, the Tyrants of Logic from the Third Doctor Adventures. A really chunky 4-parter on 2 discs. Is somehow very comparable in length to this story.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it works for authenticity as well, the length of the episodes. I think, especially maybe new listeners as well, it's not as overpowering as, say, an hour-long story. I think it knows its length, this box set. I think that's its advantage.
Yeah, it never feels rushed, but it feels like it's going on at a fun pace, and you can still keep up with it.
Did we enjoy the cliffhanger? Because this story does end
Oh.
with cliffhangers. Did it?
What
Did
a
it- was it a
cliffhanger! I
treat?
actually just listened to it then.
It was a treat, wasn't it?
I will admit it might be my favourite Big Finish cliffhanger ever. I just loved it. It was so energetic and bonkers. It was very well done, and with the final line of "if you have time," it's like wow, that is a way that you end a cliffhanger, isn't it? It reminded me a lot of Aliens of London. That cliffhanger, it's a helpless situation. The Slovenes laughing at the camera, ho ho ho, and then it's the cliffhanger. They're very rare in series one. There's not that many, but when it does it well. And yeah, I think Nick does a fab job with the momentum of that scene with Audrey, just having the power over the Doctor, and yeah, it works really well. I think maybe it's a shame that the box set didn't explore the actual Ravagers as creatures right until the end. I would have loved to have had more of their story, I guess. But the voice actress for them says, "I wouldn't mind if they came back," and you know what? I wouldn't mind if they came back either. There is more to tell with the Ravagers of how they got in that state.
So you look at their design and you think, "Oh, is this just like the Ravagers, but with a new series Doctor?" But they're completely different. Same sort of concept in a way with the way they devour stuff. But the design as well, fantastic. I'm sure we'll talk about the voice acting for them when we get to Food Fight. So Adam,
I think the general.
sorry,
Adam. I was just going to say the general rule for this set is if it's on the cover and it's not the Ninth Doctor or the TARDIS, it's probably not in the story that much.
Well, yeah, the giant robot definitely on the cover of Sphere of Freedom. You only get that in a little bit of 2 stories.
Yeah, right. Actually, I think no, he's in all 3, isn't he?
Okay.
He just usually fires his gun and says.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he's got about 1 scene in each story, and 2 of those are quite short as well.
So Adam, back to the cliffhanger. Was it an exciting one for you?
Oh yeah, I think it ended very well, and as James said, I think the sort of dialogue really helped with that. The little time and everything like that. That kind of I think the sort of two-hander between between the Ninth Doctor and Audrey as well was really good, and it sort of let you go, what you wanted to go straight into Cataclysm after that, pretty much, yeah.
It's an audio, I think, now the summer's coming. Just plug in your headphones and go, I want to walk. Like, we're being locked up in our houses all winter, and this feels like one of those feel-good things where you can go into a big empty space and just make it your own with Eccleston in your ears, I think. That's what I did both times I listened to it. Went on a bit of a walk, and yeah, just was great. Just, it takes you away, really, and then and then you get a bit distracted by the excitement of the audio, and you're like, you look around and where the fuck am I?
And that's what Eccleston does. He just takes your breath away. He just takes you away. As Luke was saying, in that trailer, he's grabbing your hand and going run, everything like that. So for that, it just works.
It absolutely serves its purpose, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I keep talking about the theme, and there's just something about the 2005 theme what just hits different for me. And just hearing that in a new story, in a new capacity. I know we had it with 10th Doctor Volume 2, but this is Eccleston. So it's
not hit as hard as when we first heard the 10th Doctor theme in Volume 1, if it feels like an event, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when it's 10th Doctor Volume 2, it's just a variation. Like, it simply is. But when it's that Doctor's theme in their first story, you're like, okay, the authenticity's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost criminal that they shortened it for the first 2 cliffhangers like they usually do with a lot of sets. But, I mean, come on, they're 42 minutes and 47 minutes. You've got the room to give us the full closing minutes there.
I mean, if it's the vinyl, definitely not.
You've still got the room.
Well,
I mean,
maybe,
they're short story.
I think it was good. It's a nice way to end the box set, at least, with that full variation. I was sat there like, Murray Gold, you genius.
Oh, it was brilliant. So I think that's Sphere of Freedom all wrapped up. So should we do our little rating on it?
Well, could I
Yeah.
just have one last thing on the cliffhanger?
Absolutely.
Sort
absolutely.
of talking about Cataclysm's cliffhanger as well, and how this one is better than that. Because similar to what James was saying about aliens in London, that cliffhanger, it's not just what we end on where the Doctor's in danger. You've got Rose and Harriet Jones in danger as well. I think. Oh yeah, and Jackie too. She's in the kitchen cowering,
Yes.
like everyone's in trouble. And with this one, you've got Nova left in quite a precarious situation too. On this strange other planet, you've got Lieutenant Faraday also in quite a bit of danger with the giant robot. And so it echoes that as well, where it's not just the cliffhanger that you have right in front of you. Different characters have their own cliffhangers at the end that they are in danger, and we are looking forward to seeing how they get out of that. And that's very much how Cataclysm starts, with picking up on all those. While Cataclysm's cliffhanger, I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying it's just that cliffhanger, and everything else going all around it just feels like story continuing. I think, unless I'm misremembering it, because it is all quite jumbled. But yeah, I think that is all I have to say about that.
Do you want to do a quick rating then?
I would
I
go.
can do that.
I'd go 9 out of 10 for Sphere of Freedom. Just a really good time.
Wow. Mm.
How about yourself, Adam?
I'm pondering. I
Okay.
think I'm probably going to go with an 8 on this one. I was going to go 7.5, but then I think, just as we were discussing it, I kind of went, to be perfectly honest, it's more an 8 for me.
All right, James?
Yeah, because I think I was like Adam when I finished the box set. When I finished it for the first time on say release, I was like, it is what I expected, but I don't think that I fully expected just how fun it would be. You kind of underestimate because I didn't want to go in with huge expectations, but Eccleston, just having so much fun, it just has such a profound impact on you. So I don't know. I think I'd have to go 8 out of 10. It absolutely serves its purpose. I think it has issues, like defo. I don't think it's fully formed. I think there is the. I guess we can talk about Nova a little bit more, but sort of how that character is limited by the text, and it's kind of the problem of maybe having a temporary companion. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit more. But it is worth saying I did actually really like Nova. I really liked. The side characters like Lieutenant Faraday. That's a great name, isn't it? Lieutenant Faraday. When his general talks to him in his receiver pronunciation, it's always quite pleasurable to listen to. But yeah, no, I think 8 out of 10. I think solid, serves its purpose. It's vibes in a set. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to undersell this box set at all by saying this, but I feel like this box set was never going to be, I mean, personal opinion, like I said to you, it's never going to be like a Chimes of Midnight spare parts sort of box set. And I think that this box set definitely does benefit re-listens, because when I first listened to this set, my opinion 2 days ago is completely different to where I stand with this box set now. Because I was a little bit iffy with this story. I was like, oh, that's probably like a 7 out of 10. But now I've listened to it again for this, little chat. I'm gonna join Luke with a 9. There's just something really pleasurable about this story, and I just really, really enjoyed it. Like with the way the Ninth Doctor just went into like the war rooms, it was very much like The Empty Child in that sort of regard. I got that sort of same sort of visual imagery of sort of it's nighttime in West End of London, and yeah, it's just wonderful. So yeah, I enjoyed Sphere of Freedom in that regard. With that wonderful cliffhanger. So we move on to the second story, Cataclysm. Again, by Nicholas Briggs. We kickstart the whole thing. I feel like this story is where we start to explore the Doctor and Nova's dynamic, as we get more character interaction. I guess we'll talk about Nova in a minute. The drones, which you can see on the cover, I think have a wonderfully authentic 2005 robot voice, very much like you'll see on Bad Wolf, like the android or Trinian and Susanna droid. They just have that classic sassy, witty dialogue which the robots had in Series 1. And this is where we start to explore more about the Ravagers and learn more about Audrey's past, what she's up to. So, Adam, what do we make of Cataclysm?
I think this episode for me, as you say, going more deep into sort of Nova, I think with like the pre-credits of the first one, already having that established dynamic, and then then getting to see sort of everything that they do, sort of in the sort of lead up in a kind of timey-wimey way. Yeah, it's great. I think her first scene in the TARDIS, like I also almost got like the vibes of Bill Potts' first introduction into the TARDIS, sort of that scene. I think that was done really well. I think I just enjoyed like the two of them really. I think they work really well, and I don't really get I feel like Nicholas Briggs wrote something more distinctive with Nova compared to sort of Rose, I suppose. Like I do feel like they're two. You could say almost similar, but not completely like I don't feel like it was like a Rose kind of surrogate. I think she very much stood like on her own and the actress was absolutely superb. Yeah, as you said, I like the drones. It's not so much. I feel like with the drones writing in the script, it's not so much like the robots in like Classic. I think, as you're saying, it would fit that more 2005 kind of thing with the dialogue that the robots had, and that was. Yeah, that was good, and I think to be honest, I do feel like the cast I think I've just made a general like thing. Like the cast are like great and solid throughout. I think it's kind of hard because like this is like Eccleston's first box set. You don't want them to kind of feel like they're being like undershadowed or like Eccleston's overshadowing them. I think all the cast throughout just they're at their A game. They're top level. It's top level sort of performances throughout, really, and ones I enjoyed, particularly like with Faraday and the other chap, the captain. The captain as well was really fun, as well as the rubber soldier. So yeah, like generally, it sort of is keeping the story going. It keeps it interesting with Cataclysm and. It's another very solid. Like I think it keeps it on the same level, really. Yeah.
Just adding on to the sort of point. So Cataclysm. James, what do you think of Cataclysm and Nova as a character? Because I feel like you've got quite strong views with sort of linking that to the long game with a certain character.
Yeah, so when you say strong views, right, like I hated Nova. No, I enjoyed Nova.
I mean, it's clickbaity, but it works, gets people's attention.
Yeah, so I think with Nova, because I really had to analyse for my dissertation every side character and what was their purpose with the text. And like Nova very much reminds me of Kathica from the long game. And I feel like I've said this like a million times. I'm sick of saying it now, but because she's stuck in this kind of very industrial world that is very highly oppressive, and she dreams of something more, a lot like Kathica wishing to go to floor 500, really. But I feel having Nova be a Kathica inspired character is a little bit problematic, and it's a little bit problematic in the way of just having a pre-Rose companion, because the vibe that Series 1 goes for is that the Night Doctor's travelled alone. Like that's pretty much it. And in a way, he has. I really like how they incorporate Nova in the fact that she's thrust upon as a responsibility of the Doctor. Like, he doesn't seem he's too up for continuously travelling. And Nova definitely has a deal where she doesn't really seem she wants to travel. She just simply wants to get away from that specific planet. And again, I'll return to Kathica in that way. But with Rose, she's meant to be perfect for him. This is his one companion, soulmate, which you will, because she ticks his boxes. She doesn't ask too many questions. She assumes the right stuff. She saves the day when she needs to, and overall, she just wants to help him in a way, because she sees through that facade immediately when they meet for the second time, when she follows him out. And she knows that he's putting up a front, and she wants to break that down. She's viewed as perfect for his character. So naturally, in the text, you can't have a temporary companion be perfect for that Doctor, or nearly a perfect character. So I feel Nova has like these things where she'll maybe ask just way too many questions in a way that Rose wouldn't, and I feel that kind of harms her character in a way. I hope I'm making sense here. And going back to her wish of traveling, Rose was so up for traveling, without a doubt, very up for traveling. While I think Nova, it's not really mentioned that she wants to do that until right at the end of Food Fight. She just simply wants to get away from this planet. And I feel that doesn't make her a suitable long-term companion, because that's why she was designed that way, in a way. So I found it very hard to get to know her. And I hope that makes sense, because she's actively limited by the boundaries that have been put in place 15 years ago. So maybe a part of me wishes, maybe they should have just waited for Billy. But I also think it is kind of cool to have Eccleston. I want to say have someone else in the TARDIS, because I feel that's the whole point of Rose. But definitely be able to be friendly with somebody and not kind of want to get rid of them constantly, if that makes sense. I hope I've made sense in that way. Definitely reminded me of Catholica a lot, because Catholica could have been a companion. That's the whole point of Long Game, and along with Series 1, it's showing like these potential people who could travel with the Doctor, but they lack certain qualities because of Rose. Like, it's all meant to set up her. Catholica could have travelled with the Doctor, but she didn't really want any life goals beyond floor 500, and then she opted to stay home. So yeah, that's, I think, my kind of, I don't know, it struggled for me to get to know her, I guess I'm just trying to say. But yeah, Nova was fine. I liked the robot encounter. I thought the robot encounter was very, very fun. I like the design of them as well, because I think a worry that kind of we had going into the set of, is it going to be big generic robots, a bit like, say, the Titan comics, which I didn't vibe with like at all. Because Series 1 has this definite style thing about thought, and where they want the robots to be inspired by like 1950s sci-fi. That's why the android is so sleek, these panels and stuff. And she's very simplistic, that's the word. And I feel that's what these sort of sphere robots they get that vibe. And I really enjoy that. A good bit of humour. But no, I think that you definitely got to get a lot of interaction between these two, where the Ninth Doctor just gets to show off a lot. But I think when you finish this set, you can see why he still opts to travel alone. He's still not found that perfect person yet. So I wish that they maybe actually did incorporate that more, that she isn't the perfect companion for him at this point in time, but she's going to prove herself. And I wish they maybe just had a bit more self-referential themes in that way, just to tie it all together, I guess. Because it did just feel like, here's a character that you really like, and not much more than that, I feel.
No, definitely agree with that. Luke, how about yourself? How do you feel about Cataclysm as a story and Nova as a character for the sort of companion of this story?
Cataclysm as a story, it's very much, you've had the fun of Spear of Freedom. Now this is where you really have to start proving yourself a bit more plot-wise. Give us a bit more there. A lot of it I found myself struggling to engage with, as well as I did with the first set. I think especially when you get closer to the middle of it and towards the end, you're getting a lot more technobabble thrown your way, a lot more confusing stuff that I just felt like I had to go back on and re-listen to see if I was picking up on the right things. And that sort of did spoil this one a bit for me compared to the first episode. And so I think it's very weighed down by a lot of that. And also, it's just not as fun as the first episode was, I'd say. There's still some good moments, particularly towards the start of this one. But yeah, it's my least favourite of the three, to be honest.
It's a very quiet story, I think, in some ways, especially when they're in the prison. It takes its time a lot more. I think give the two distinct identity.
Yeah, moments in the prison do work quite well for me, though.
Yeah,
but I love the how the guard ends up start coming into flirt, and Nova gets the wrong idea, and suddenly it's the Ninth Doctor who he's actually interested in, and it's just wonderful how quickly he goes with that. There's no embarrassment there or anything. He's like, yes, I'd love to.
And that's very true for the Ninth Doctor. He's very a man of the universe. It's like when Jack kisses him in the past and the ways, he's like, yeah, sure. And he has a few other references to that in the whole series as well, just being fine with all.
Yeah. I think this is probably the most open it has been to the idea of the Doctor being bi, I suppose.
Yeah, in a way, definitely.
Yeah, particularly the Ninth Doctor. And there's probably some other moments scattered throughout that I either just haven't listened to yet or just forgotten about. But yeah, certainly this feels like the most. I don't want to say on the nose because I feel like that has negative connotations. People sort of connote that with it being forced down your throat, which this really isn't. It's just a nice little moment.
I think visibility. Yeah, that's the word that Russell used a lot in Writer's Tale. You know, when he really stresses having LGBT representation, but specifically for gay men, because obviously that's what Russell knows and can write about. It's all about visibility for him. It's why there's a reference to anything LGBT in nearly every episode of Series 1, and sexuality is referenced in every single episode, definitely, and that definitely fits in with there because it's culture shocking Doctor Who into the 21st century. I'm really glad Nick put that in. That little bit of flirtation. It worked really well. It felt very authentic. Yeah, it was cool. I loved it.
Yeah, then you even have that nice little line afterwards where Nova knocks him out. She's like, "Were you jealous?"
Yeah,
that's just. It's a very nice little moment, I'd say, that one. So, yeah, Cataclysm, it does have its redeeming qualities. And I'm not going to be, when we get to the rankings, I'm not going to be like that harsh on it. But just in comparison to the fun I had with Sphere of Freedom, I felt like I had been a bit worn down by this episode. I was starting to worry about where we were going overall direction-wise. But yeah, I think it's got some strong moments. Again, coming into the dialogue of it going on a bit too long, I felt like there was a lot of that with Nova when she was on the planet being chased by the drones. And part of that is just audio medium. You've got to have a lot of dialogue in there in some ways. But yeah, a lot of it just felt like it went on a bit too long. It wasn't as snappy as it could have been. And it's very much like trying to get the point across in more words than it needs to. Sort of like what I'm doing right now, how I've just probably said the same thing in about 3 different ways. But yeah, this isn't a audio story, this is a review, so I have a bit more leeway, I suppose. But yeah, Nova as a character, though, I think she does sort of struggle from the fact that Rose, when we're first introduced to her, like we see her before we even see the Doctor, and we have this whole montage of her regular life that she is living, 9-to-5 job, just a very regular 21st century life. She's enjoying it, but there could be more. Nova, obviously, partly, again, audio medium, you can't quite do that again, and also she's not going to be carrying on beyond this set, so you don't need that as much. You don't need the strong character setup. But for someone who is supposedly living this very cramped, boring life, going to work, going back to home, living in this very small unit, I think she maybe needed a bit more of that setup wise, because all we have of her in this story is her in relation to the Doctor. When she's on her own after she's met the Doctor. We never get anything with her before she's met the Doctor, and I think part of the problem with her suffers from that, and that could just be down to the way the audio is organised, to be fair, because a lot of it is told from the Ninth Doctor's point of view. Like Sphere of Influence is very Sphere of Freedom is told from his point of view, really, and so she does suffer in that sense, where we only know her in relation to the Ninth Doctor. We don't know her as a character on her own until after she's met him.
And I feel that's kind of a problem, not having Rose in these sets, because it never really, because Nova can never be allowed to be a companion. But I guess she is. Yeah. But she feels a lot more like a side character, akin to Gwyneth. But I want to say, let's just use that as an example, because the Ninth Doctor's not a character who's that interested in wanting to know about your life, really. But definitely. Rose, who goes to Gwyneth and talks to her about, so how much do you get paid? Like, how long have you worked for? What about school? What about boys? And that's where you get like the character and the motivations and I guess the emotional resonance from it. And I think I think people understate the importance of Rose because she allows, one-on-one talks between women. And I think that's what this set lacks.
Yeah, because it's only her and
Yeah.
Audrey, really.
Yes.
And obviously those two don't have many moments between them. You do have some nice moments with Audrey herself. Especially you've got Audrey and the president as well. But even then, that's very formal. That's very much this high stakes situation. It's not just them having a chat about their lives. And so you do lack that personal connection with all the characters, really. And I think that's the thing. She's very much a supporting character in the same way that Lieutenant Faraday, what is it, General Gaius Maximus? Was that Dan Stark? Yeah, Marcus Aurelius Gallius. There we go. I've just looked it up. And then Captain Halloran as well as the other army officer. You've got these three characters there, and then you've got Nova as the fourth. Where they sort of all serve a similar function, but Nova's obviously the Doctor's favourite, and she's obviously the one that they're trying to squeeze more into the companion role. And she sort of awkwardly floats between the two, not quite one or the other. And so she doesn't quite work in either role, unfortunately, because of that. Too important to be one of these just side characters, but she's also not important enough to be a main character.
I can feel that, definitely. It's just the lack of that perspective from her end. I just feel that, as you say, that we don't quite get.
I still feel like Camilla Beeper did a great job with the character.
Definitely. Absolutely.
She's still fun to listen to, and again, like I say about Sphere of Freedom, it's at its best when it's just having fun. And I think the character of Nova is at her best when she's just having fun alongside the Doctor.
I think the way that she relates a lot to Eccleston is that usually... was it you who made this point to me, or was I just talking to someone else who... sometimes actors, when they go into an audio booth, when they're instructed to shout, they don't actually shout. They shout.
I did. Yeah.
Was that your point?
Yeah, that was. I remember.
Yeah, and I feel Camilla Beeput and Chris really shout. It allows for that really high stake action performance. Yeah.
It's all like it's the opposite
job.
It's the opposite of a stage whisper, isn't it? Where it's like this audio shout where you can tell it's someone who's in a booth. They don't want to be too loud, but they still want to convey that they're shouting on audio. Christopher Eccleston and Camilla Beeput, meanwhile, they actually give it their all, and it really does feel authentic to them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Cataclysm's got some interesting ideas within there, like you say, like the drones and the whole sort of using humans as biofuel. I think that I would have liked to have seen that explored a little bit more than the actual story. But I think, again, we're sort of tied to the Time Eddy stuff, so there isn't much chance to explore the whole sort of biofuel sort of stuff, which I think would be quite interesting to explore in the story.
Definitely. It seems that planet. Unfortunately, I think a bit like the gladiator arena where everyone's transported in, just not explored as much as you'd want it to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to ask about this story, because we get a little revelation of a certain bit of technology, which for me personally, I feel a little bit off for the sort of Series 1 sort of feel with the technology origin. I just want to know how you guys feel about that. So Adam, how do you feel about the sort of the main bit of technology being used and its sort of origin?
I'm literally just trying to remember that scene, actually. I can't... sort of passed me by.
Well, I think we can say, because I think we've already done that as well, that the node that the Doctor has and that Audrey has, it's the same node, but it's a piece of Time Lord technology. I think it's more Food Fight, they say it. They have a line of like, oh, it belongs to his people. They made it, or even he made it. There's a little bit of that. So I guess what Ben's trying to say is that kind of, is it right to have a reference to Time Lord technology in a time where there's no Time Lords, I guess?
I suppose I didn't really mind it. I'm just sort of remember. Yeah, I suppose I didn't really mind it so much. I get where people are coming from, but I suppose in a way, if it was sort of they wanted to make it a part of the story, then it was kind of fine. I think there's a lot worse you could have sort of done, a lot worse kind of story or sort of lore direction you could have taken it. There's been, after all that kind of thing. So I think in the end, it's compared to sort of the stuff you get, bits you get from the other stuff. This one, fine, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
because I think me and Ben spoke about it, and I was fine.
see, I think
I
for
felt
me,
quite excited for it.
see, from my perspective, I feel like the Time Lords are this sort of mysterious, ethereal beings what have now gone, and I feel like it wasn't really earned. Even though it's pre-Rose, it didn't really feel earned for it to be the Time Lord, if that makes sense for me. The suit to properly
Because
justify
I
what
think
it said.
I think.
quite.
Oh, who wants to go first? Me, Luke.
You can go. You go.
Okay. I think I'm fine with it in the way that Series 1 is a lot about the impact and the fallout of the Time Lords. Like, Jabe knows about the Time Lords.
Yeah.
He says, I'm sorry. The Gelth are victims of the Time War. The whole Rift is a result of the Time War. And even the Slitheen, I think, are related to it in a way where Law and Order has kind of gone out of the universe, and it's like this crime family is allowed to kind of rise and profit off the toxic sludge of what probably was planets impacted by it. You never know. And especially with the Reapers as well, my people would have stopped this. I think it's cool that they never specifically say the word Time Lord or Gallifrey. They say his people, my people, long dead race. I think that's how you keep it subtle enough. And I feel in a pre-Rose world, you can maybe have him pick up like a device. Not many, I think just have it be this one, but just like a little remnant that's found its way into people's.
It very much just feels like all out, doesn't it?
Hands.
It's just this stray bullet that's gone off course in the war.
Yeah, it feels like the
more of a
Dalek in
reaction
a way.
from Eccleston. Like,
Yeah,
get more of it all.
because I feel he spends a lot of time picking up the pieces. I think throughout, he's still tidying up everything. Because not even the Wards got that chance. It was blow up or save Gallifrey. It was blow up in the original timeline, then save it in the revised timeline come 2013. So it does feel that the Ninth Doctor can do like these little jobs where he just feels he has this weight on his shoulders to wrap these things up. So I think I was fine with it. I don't. The stuff I don't like is the Time Lord Victorious comic, where the Ninth Doctor is like openly talking about Rassilon, the Death Zone, and Gallifrey to Rose. Like, no, he wouldn't do that. To him, they're gone. Like, that's it. There's no getting them back. Like, there's no reason for him to mention it, and plus, it's too painful. I think it's respectful in those boundaries, and I got quite excited by it as a little plot point. As long as he's not meeting a Time Lord, I'm fine.
Yeah. I think it's this nice little connection. Like when it's just him and the Node we're skipping a bit forward to Food Fight here, but when it's just those two, there is something very special about the moments that's going on there. And like you have that come on little Node, this last bit of life. And also I think throughout the whole set, like this is the Ninth Doctor in the TARDIS. Like these are the last two bits of his home, really. They're like the two last survivors. And I feel like this set, more than a lot of other Doctor Who stories, really gets the connection between the two of them. And I feel like there's definitely something there between them that you don't always get. Again, Food Fight towards the end when he gets back there, and you have that moment from the trailer. It's like, I'm back. I'm finally back in the TARDIS. You did it, old girl. I think there's just an extra bit of connection between the two that I really enjoy in this set.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a bit of an old grumpy sod now.
Shame on you.
Yeah. I mean, I just think there should have been a bit more of a reaction and more of a response from the Doctor finding it out what it was. I think that's where my problem lies. Not that they've used it, but I just feel like there needed to be a bit more of a meat for like a character, like a more of a beat of change of thought within the Doctor for him to go, oh, and then move on maybe. Like I didn't feel like there was a reaction or response from it. It was just like, yeah, brush it off, which I feel like there should have been a bit more of it.
I feel like I'd have to re-listen to that bit and see how I found it, because from memory, I can't remember how much reaction there was, if there was none at all. So yeah, I can't really say I can comment on that bit specifically, but I can see where you're coming from with that.
There's just a lot of rules, and sometimes you have to bend them for drama. As long as you don't go too far, it's like they'll break them and like have them go Gallifrey or something. That'd just be silly. Or have them eat a Dalek. I don't want that. Like no Daleks before Dalek, please. Whether it's classic or new series, like just no. But yeah, it is kind of like it is kind of like those rules that you just have to kind of abide to, I guess. But I thought they did it fine, because it felt like he comes across these little bits quite often. And that didn't bother me, I don't think, just because of like all the remnants of the Time War in Series 1 stuff. I felt fine with that.
Yeah, like right back from the first episode, Auton's, their home planet's been destroyed. And so it very much feels like he's almost trying to set right what the Time War set wrong. And so this ties into that quite well.
And it works as... Oh, go on, sorry. Go on.
Oh, yeah, so what you were saying about the boundaries, like you can push against these rules as long as you don't break them, and certain ones you shouldn't go anywhere near. I think that sort of... The more time that passes, the more relaxed they become. And then we get to Dalek Universe, and there we're able to push a bit more until we get to the point where the spoilers for Dalek Universe here, the 10th Doctor gets the chance to maybe go back to Gallifrey, but he refuses that. He says, no, I can't do this, not even for a second, because I'd be too tempted. And so I think that's, again, a problem, like you were saying, with those... Time Lord Victorious comics, like even more so with the Ninth Doctor, he'd be even more resistant against that.
Yeah,
definitely agree.
It's just the nature of the beast and different fan perspectives, I think, which is fun to have.
Yeah, I mean, it just creates for a more interesting discussion, really, than everyone just being, yes, that was wonderful. Speaking of, was it wonderful, should we move on to the ratings for Cataclysm? So, Adam, how did you find Cataclysm?
I would say, I think after being adjusted into sort of Sphere of Freedom, I think it's only a slight kind of markdown. I sort of give it like a 7.5. You sort of have the fun. You enjoyed the kind of establishing moments. You like even the cliffhanger as well. And then this one, you're still kind of enjoying it, but maybe sort of agree with Luke, is that you do kind of lose that high just a little bit as well, but it's still not like dramatically kind of we're kind of in this, and it doesn't completely lower down. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna go 7.5 at this one.
Okay, James.
Yeah, I think this one did things better than Sphere. I think it did things worse. I think it did dialogue better, but I also think pace took a bit of a hit. I think it's worth saying. I think I really enjoyed every episode in the set. I've listened to them all twice. And yeah, both times with Cataclysm, it made me laugh, it made me smile. I think I had good drama. But I don't know if I could go above a 6.5 with it. I don't know. I just don't feel it hits that 7, but I don't think it's a bad thing for it to be. I have saw quite a few 6s going around with this set, which I think is fine. Like it goes out with the thing to be an introduction that doesn't really want to. I don't know. I did make a tweet about this, and it's like I see a lot of people being like, "This is fine because it's an introduction set," and I think there's this huge misconception with fans of a program where they think that their program is way more complex than it is. Yeah, so complicated storytelling or storytelling and drama that challenges character, conceptions of a genre, or stuff related to that, it does not mean that it's going to put audiences off. I think what puts audiences off is if you're unambitious with the subject. Because I hear a lot of Doctor Who fans say a lot like, oh, well, it's such a complex show with its time travel and stuff. I've shown my girlfriend this program and she went, every villain in this show is the same. And that just made me laugh. It's a humbling thing to hear that from a non-fan. a perspective that we don't share. That maybe our show isn't as complex as we think. So yeah, I think this goes out with that fan mindset of challenging storytelling might be accessible when I truly don't believe that's the case. Series 1, every decision that made was unsafe. It stripped everything of Doctor Who apart, only kept the Doctor, the TARDIS, and the sonic screwdriver, and it just made it an entirely new show. It's those unsafe decisions that made an accessible show, and I feel this box set just simply didn't wish to do that, I guess. So I think Cataclysm does its job fine, I guess. There's some fun stuff in there. Again, just to kind of finish off my notes and stuff. There's some stuff I really love. I love how the TARDIS materializes around Nova, like in Part of the Ways, and it does it.
And even the drones in there.
Yeah. I don't think they've ever had the TARDIS materialize around someone after Parting of the Ways in the show.
Is it Dinosaurs on a Spaceship Power 3 when they materialize around Brian changing the light bulb?
Oh, yeah.
They have that? Okay. Because I remember as a kid, I always used to play with that idea. That just always took my imagination of that it could materialize around even a Dalek, So I really love that kind of callback. And this, I think Cataclysm especially has a lot of callbacks to Eccleston's moments. He says, right first time to Nova when she delivers the line about the about wanting to save the day with the drones. It's very similar to his enthusiasm when Rose suggests crossing the timelines in Parting of the Ways. And of course, you have crossing of timelines in this story as well. But yeah, I think 6.5 is where it goes because, again, it's plot. Despite it being kind of a non-linear story, I do think it's unambitious, and I will be honest, the plot of this box set's the exact same as Dalek Universe, which I think is unintentional, but just the way that time's being messed about and everything's being displaced everywhere, it feels very similar, I think.
You can have a Roman on both covers.
What was that?
You even have a Roman on both covers.
You do, don't you?
I think you once said they look like the same Roman. I think after very close analysis, we realised they weren't, but they're very similar nevertheless.
Yeah. But no, I guess my little rant was just a thing to say, maybe if we want to get new audiences, just be a bit more ambitious, because that's what I think a lot of people are having a bit of a debate over, I think, with this. But yeah, it didn't want to be, I guess, rather than its structure, so I think it's fine. It's a 6.5. This is the introduction set, and I feel as time goes on with more box sets, especially the next one, I hope we can really push that boundary and have a bit of reinvention along the way.
So speaking of, speaking of the Rovers, because there was the night you said that the Dalek Universe stuff, but then there was also the Lone Centurion thing. So now there's got to be a thing. It's all connected. There's this new series thing they're doing where Roman just there's a certain Roman character that just pops up everywhere as time's being this is sort of I remember the tagline was for 4 time victorious they fight a whole new time war time they sort of the Daleks sort of didn't know what the time war was, and there's this weird thing with time and Romans and all that kind of stuff, and it's all crazy.
And if you look at the Pandorica opens, it simply means that Matt Smith has confirmed to Big Finish. So we're using Big Brain here.
Big Brain energy. I'm going to kind of disagree with your point about the box set not being ambitious, because I feel like this box set didn't play it safe as much as the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 1, where it was very much ripping off 2008 nostalgia. So I will give this box set credit for trying to do something a little bit more challenging than what you would get with, a 10th Doctor box set when he first started.
Oh, definitely, but I think I just more meant thematically and stuff.
Not format-wise. Yeah, format-wise, it's more ambitious.
Yeah.
But the actual storytelling-wise, it's not as complex as people make it out to be.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm sort of coming from in the box set's defence, because I do admire the sort of balls of Nick Briggs going, right, I'm going to tell this 3-hour, one long story instead of going, here's one standalone story in each set. Really. So I admire that within this box set. So I think that's my little bit of courage for
Yeah.
Captain, for the Ravagers really. So that's one thing I like. As for a rating for me, I'm gonna give it an 8. I enjoyed it.
Wow,
I
cool.
still enjoyed it. I mean, when I first listened to it, this was my favourite story of the box set.
Oh wow.
But now it's become Sphere of Freedom. So Luke, what's your rating?
Ooh, I'm probably gonna. I think I'm gonna go 6.5 as well, same as James. I was flirting between a 6 and a 7. One seemed too harsh, one seemed too generous. 6.5 is the middle ground to go for, I suppose.
Okay.
So yeah, it's got some very strong moments. It's got some bits I really like. But overall, like pacing wise, the way it all comes together, it just does throw me off a bit, and it feels like the momentum from Sphere of Freedom was lost a bit. However, whereas Sphere of Freedom I really enjoyed anyway, this one I feel I enjoy more after listening to Food Fight because now I know where it's going. Whereas the first time when I finished this story, I was worried about how it was going to all come together and what was up next. But now with how it turned out, sort of spoiling how I'm going to feel about Food Fight, I ended up not being as I didn't need to worry as much as I did, if that makes sense. Not that Food Fight's a perfect 10, but what happens there makes Cataclysm better in hindsight.
Okay. Is that everyone's ratings done? Have we done your rating, Adam?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've gone 7.5. Yeah.
I just sort of lost where we were. In the
Okay,
I think we spent a long while doing that rating.
Yeah, I was just like, where are we going? Okay, cool. We've got a nice little comment from Joe Beverly. Loving the diverse opinions. Something I'm automatically overly drawn to is the Ninth Doctor as he's my doctor. That's pretty cool because we're the 05 fans here. So we do have a bit of Eccleston here. So yeah, that is Cataclysm. On to the final story in the box set, which is Food Fight. Which I'm gonna be honest is probably my least favourite of the set. I feel like the resolution seems very anticlimactic. The Doctor finally does get his Chalganzi, and it's a bit like the War Doctor of Innocence, where he's just slurping on a bit of fruit juice for a good 5 minutes. A classic Nick Briggs little trope, really. So, what do we think of Food Fight as the conclusion of as this box, and how do you think about the villain of the piece, Audrey? How do you feel she's explored throughout the box as well? So, James.
Oh, cool. So, see, I think when I listened to this, I think Food Fight, I think like you, was probably my least favourite. I didn't feel satisfied coming out of it, but I gave it a few days between listening, and I found it a lot more memorable, I think, than Cataclysm. Cataclysm's one where I think you're very in the moment with. It's a very in the moment story. There's nice moments, but I think from a story perspective, you kind of have to think, oh wait, what was this specific one about? Well, I think there's big, grand set pieces in this that really it stays with you a lot with like how the Ninth Doctor reacts to working out where he fits in the timelines. I really enjoyed that. And then when he synchronizes up with Audrey, and she's like, "This is you, isn't it? You're here." And it's like, "Yeah." You get chills. It's like the Doctor. He knows everything, what's going on, and he's here to save the day. I really love that stuff. Audrey as a villain, I didn't expect her to be so complex. I really, really loved her, because she has the very relatable. I don't know whether this is just me coming out from a degree, but like she has the very relatable motivation of not wanting to fail. And like, who doesn't want to fail at anything? Obviously, like she's a bit fucking mental. Like I think all villains have to be, but she has that such strong foundation that propels her actions forward. And unfortunately, she creates a slave planet. I feel the Doctor was maybe a little bit too late on her for that. We don't really get an inkling of what's going to be her consequences. But I guess that does fit in with the theme of series one of the Doctor kind of solving something and then moving on. He doesn't think about the long lasting implications, eventually creating the world that we see in Bad Wolf. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the callback to Father's Day when the Doctor's kind of zipped away in a time eddy. I will admit the time eddies were a thing I didn't really enjoy in this story quite a lot.
They're hard to visualize, aren't they? Like, what
The sound
exactly?
design was a bit like Screaming Peacocks. It was like they've been
Yeah.
made by some weird birds or these time eddy. I don't know.
See, I wanted to talk about sound design at some point, but I didn't really know where to fit in. I think the sound design found its way as the box set went along, but I really struggled with the first episode at first because I just don't like the sound effect for the time eddies. It doesn't feel like something that would be used in 2005. That's a problem with it. It sounds a bit modern, generic sci-fi sound effect. Do you know what I mean? It's not really until in Food Fight where you really hear the sound of the vortex and that beautiful moment where they look out into it and they all share a different perspective on it. The Roman sees it as madness, while the Doctor sees it as endless possibilities. Nova views it as pure beauty. And Captain, I think will it be Captain Halloran? I think shares his opinion. Like, it really is something to marvel at. They all share.
Faraday's just a bit sick about it. Don't like this.
Yes, I love that. But yeah, I think that's a moment that sticks out to me. That I think maybe stuff beyond the flirtation with the guard and the robots. I think they're the only things that really stick out in Cataclysm. Unfortunately, just in kind of memory, it just shows what hindsight can do for a story and stuff. Not to go on, but I really loved his conversation with the Ravagers. I loved their voice work.
It's very reminded me very much of the Gelf. That's all very eerie sort of girl voice, if that's the name. Just
Yes,
very much of the Gelf.
Yes, because Claire Corbett speaks about how she did the voice, being like, you want a childlike sense of wonder to it that gives them a sense of unpredictability. You don't know what they're going to do next. And she even does the voice in the special features. It's great. I listened to it a few times. It's just so entertaining. It's a great voice, very Gelf-like, but I wanted more of how we found out about them. How did they get to this situation of just feeding off their own fear? Because I feel you could fit in a thing of the Time War in the fact that they were so scared during such an uncertain time that they got addicted to that fear, and I feel that's something you could explore. But obviously, it's a bit unclear how much of that impact we're going to learn in these box sets because Chris wanted to focus a lot more on sort of the light-hearted side of series one. I think
the wonder of traveling through time and space.
Exactly. And it's nice, but I do appreciate that when we do get references to the war, they're always so grounded. And he even speaks about, I think it's to the Ravagers that he does reference. He says the line of the long dead race. I think it's to them, and I think that's a really beautiful moment. It really ties everything up and shows maybe a direction that we're going to go in. Who knows? I think we could have a series of self-reflection going on for the Ninth Doctor. But yeah, no, Food Fight. I think it doesn't know its pace as well as Sphere of Freedom, but I think it does it better than Cataclysm. And I really like the solution, but I probably would have liked a bit more stakes in it, which I'll talk a bit later on. But yeah, I've spoken long enough. But yeah, have fun, everyone, with you.
I was just going to say, I really liked the confrontation with Audrey and the Doctor in this. It's very long game-esque with him tied up.
Yes.
I love that. I think that's one of my highlights within the box set. So I think for me, where this box set excels itself is the more quieter moments of Chris. Because I love Chris being full of energy, and you can tell that he's enjoying being in the recording booth. But for me, I just love that sort of quiet Ninth Doctor moments with that slight bit of sass in there, because it just feels like that's the Ninth Doctor. Because this. I mean, the sort of spoilers of my overall thoughts on the box. I feel like this is very much Series 2. If Chris was on Series 2, it's very much we've moved past the Time War stuff. This is him getting a second take at the role, really.
And I feel thematically that works because they reference in both Cataclysm and Food Fight how this Doctor's still running away. He's not ready to confront the kind of sadness and mention about the war. He really has to know Rose through 2 adventures to even mention his home planet's gone. And even then, he won't open up about who the fight was with because he's too traumatized by the idea of a Dalek still. So you can, I think, get away with, as long as you acknowledge that, he is still in that running stage. I think that you can get away with maybe moving beyond the Time War a little bit, because it'll always be a factor of him. It'll always haunt him. But as long as I think that you can explore more light-hearted stuff, and it gives him a lot of meat to act with as well. Definitely.
I think I've seen a lot of people saying how, when they saw us going pre-Rose, they thought we were going to get a much more moody Ninth Doctor for some reason, that they were going to see more the fallout from the Time War and its effects on his psyche, and him very much being weighed down by it. And certainly he is weighed down by it, but it's beneath the surface. And I mean, even in Rose and End of the World, before he even really got to know her, he's got this facade on. He's still very much going around with a smile. And then, there he is. This is me swanning off, going around. By the way, Run for Your Life, where he's got the bomb and stuff, and he's doing it all with a smile. And so it very much fits that here he's also going around with a smile, but beneath the surface there is still that sadness about it all. And it's certainly during those quieter moments where he slows down that you really get the true grief that the Time War has inflicted upon him beneath there. But that's people who are grieving, they're not just going to be moping around 100% of the time. That's just not how it works. You have good days, you have bad days, and days that are in between. And so for the Ninth Doctor, very much at this point in his life, I think it's been said that he's going around trying to sort problems out. He's throwing himself in just that he doesn't have to think about the consequences of what happened. And so I don't think we need a mopey, depressed Ninth Doctor. I think we do need a Ninth Doctor who is trying to have fun, who is enjoying himself, as long as we don't forget that beneath the surface there's more to him.
I definitely agree with that, definitely.
And also, who just wants to listen to 12 box sets of Christopher Eccleston being mopey?
It's something like Neff Fountain, the story in Sixth Doctor and Parry box of the Freud thing. I think that would be quite a good little see Eccleston on having therapy. I think that'd be quite.
Yeah, he diverts a lot, doesn't he?
Argos catalogue that by it.
Why not? Let's have that.
Maybe we'll get that.
I think I would love a story focusing on the inner workings of Nine's mind. Really, I think that'd be pretty
Inside Number 9.
Yeah, wow, it lends itself, doesn't it?
The title writes itself.
There we go. So Adam, what do you think of Audrey as the villain of the piece and Food Fight as a story and wrapping up the 3-hour saga?
I think she's a very fitting villain for, the Ninth Doctor's first kind of audio outing, because I feel like she taps into, what Chris does, particularly with the complex kind of Doctor that he is, still scarred by the war and everything, that you sort of had, you had those quiet moments, but also definitely those moments of heroism, and when he's sort of trying to make sense of it, bring it all together, particularly when there's all these kind of elements of the Romans and people in the 50s and stuff like that, when he's sort of quiet please all of you, there's that heroism, he's in control and we'll get it sorted, and absolutely does that. But I feel like what the thing is with Food Fight is, as you mentioned, the scene in the diner, he's slurping on the milkshake, and basically there's that little audio bit where it says ha, you're a nerd, and I feel like that's one of the best moments in a Big Finish ever, because I feel like it speaks to me on a very personal and emotional level, because of course I am a nerd and I've been listening to Doctor Who, watching Doctor Who all my life, so all my life I have been a nerd, so all I want to do is to take that clip and have that be my text message alert, so that I'm always reminded that will always be the case. I think Nicholas Briggs is a genius for doing that, and I love that bit in the end. So even when you feel like it's a bit, the ending's so and so, it has its moments. Sometimes, could have stuck it better, but hey ho, you have that ending, and I almost, I'd love more sort of those kind of like moments, because I think that's what Eccleston always wanted to do. He pitched a comedy different, and there'd be a different kind of side to him. Because there was when the Ninth Doctor trailer like originally dropped. I know I when I was talking to people about it, I know people said like, they said it sounded great, but also different. Which I kind of like. I almost kind of like the fact that maybe there is a kind of difference because there has been that distance away from doing it as well. I think maybe they're comparing it to Tennant, where he sort of had those few series, he came back for the 50th, and a few years later for the big finish and that kind of thing. So I don't know whether they're sort of making that comparison, but I almost kind of think, yeah, I quite like that. It's still the same version of the character from series one, but there is also the kind of I feel like they've made room to kind of also make their own stamp on it, and Eccleston bringing something different to it rather than feel like, because he does make reference, he does say, yeah, trying to learn what he did 15 or so years ago, but also I almost like the fact that it's a new Ninth Doctor thing rather than feeling like, yeah, this is kind of same old same old.
Yeah, I mean, we've even got a nice little joke about, I bet you like the classics as well.
Yeah.
But just talking about like the immersive game sort of feel, I feel like it has that sort of 2005 feel because, much like Bad Wolf was ripping off reality TV, whereas, sort of PlayStation's, Xboxes was sort of becoming into their own around 2005. Whereas this sort of has a modern spin on gaming with sort of immersive gaming, like VR. So I feel like Nick Briggs sort of took a bit of 2020 or whatever sort of technology and thought, let's put it into the Ninth Doctor's world, which I admire, really. And I think Audrey as a villain works as well because it's sort of, the Doctor's an anti-hero, isn't he? Very much at the beginning, and sort of Audrey's sort of an anti-villain as well because she's not really a villain because she's trying to hold back the Ravagers in that sense, but she's just causing chaos by trying to do so, really. So I think that's something quite interesting, but they're both anti-hero and villain, really. So I think that makes it quite an interesting dynamic between those two characters.
Yeah, she's someone who's she's devoted her pretty much whole life to this thing as well, or a very good chunk of it. And so I think that makes her, she's very compelling, as I wouldn't even call her a villain, to be honest. I would say more of just a victim of circumstance, really. She's someone who's trying her best to sort this out. Like, going to this whole slave world was not her first option. She had exhausted everything else before this became almost the only thing she could do. And if these people weren't in the conditions they're in, they would be consumed and dead. And she's trying to make it okay for them. She's not trying to make them suffer too much, but at the same time, she's so focused on the big picture, she has forgotten these little details a bit. And meanwhile, the Ninth Doctor, going into this story, he's focusing too much on the little details that he is missing the big picture until he finally works it all out in the end, because he's coming at it from this very timeliney perspective. He's going through different plot points. And yeah, I really did like Audrey. And I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier thematically about the set. In the first story, Sphere of Freedom, you have the Doctor being understanding with these Romans who have just slaughtered loads of innocents because they've been displaced from their own time. They have no idea what's going on. They're probably preparing for a battle, and now they're here. He's not excusing them of what they've done. He admits what they've done is terrible, but at the same time, he's understanding with that. And so with Audrey, you have a character who is in a similar situation where what she's done isn't excusable, but you can understand where she's coming from. And I think as well, the Doctor, there's that constant theme of him misunderstanding her and him seeing her as the villain for a while, especially early on, and him not being sure of her. But then you were saying earlier about the scene where he's tied down, and I think that sums up the relationship between the two brilliantly, because she says, "You're not tied down to keep you there. You're tied down to stop you rolling off the bench in your sleep." And I think that's just, he's very much in disbelief of that. He's like, I don't believe you. And so she undoes them for him. And that sort of is their whole relationship in a nutshell. That's what they're going for here, where the Doctor is the good guy, mistrusting her. She is not necessarily a good person, but she's someone trying to do the right thing. Like you say, she's an anti-villain. And so I think, yeah, she's such a layered character and one of the most interesting in this set. Yeah, I really did like her, especially in Food Fight. I feel like this is where she's at her best. I feel like it's hard to keep track of her in the where is it Cataclysm. But yeah, Food Fight is really where she gets her chance to shine.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel there's an element introduced where the Ninth Doctor in a way creates her personality with how the future him has to kind of. I'm still a little bit confused on where these visions of the Ninth Doctor take place in his timeline, but with the way he pops up in and out of her life, it really gives her an extra drive of, am I mental? Do I have to, do I have to one up like this imaginary figure that I don't even know is real? Yeah. So it makes her a little bit unhinged in a way, and it gives her a lot more of, I think, even a more brutal motivation where she ends up ignoring like what you say, all the luxuries in life. There's a great line with Nova where Nova shouts, and I love it because it gave Nova a bit of agency, where she just shouts, "Well, you've overworked us for years, with barely any food and a crappy little bed," and she just goes, "Well, I couldn't exactly have made it a utopia now, could I?" It was just, she just lands the point so well. It was such a good line. Yeah, I think a lot of that is brought upon by the Ninth Doctor coming in out of her life for what, 10 years, I think, because there's a 1.5 year gap, and then probably more after that. But yeah, which again fits with series 1. Like the Ninth Doctor does stuff, and he creates situations and people. Blonfell Focher's plan to destroy the entire Earth would not have happened if the Ninth Doctor killed all of her family, stuff like that. And along with the long game, if he stuck around just for a day, then the world wouldn't be doomed to 100 years of hell. And that's where I think the consequences all lie. And that's what makes Audrey such a well-rounded and legitimate villain.
Yeah.
Very akin to if the editor, I think, had a lot more character and time to develop. I think it's kind of like, yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, like the Doctor has the luxury of being able to just fly off from these situations and not think about them again, whereas these characters who are stuck in them and have to work out solutions to these quite complex problems, and sometimes there isn't a best case scenario where everyone comes out in this utopia. Sometimes the best case scenario is a bit of a shitty one, but it's better than the alternative. And so I think she has quite a few lines about that, about the Ninth Doctor judging her, taking the moral high ground, whereas he's maybe not necessarily able to do that because he does have the luxury of flying away and moving on.
There's a very eerie scene, and I think it's maybe their second meeting through timelines and Food Fights, where she mentions it being 5 years. And she says this line of like, "Am I right about this thing?" Which I think ended up being very close to the truth, that they could have worked out together, but the Ninth Doctor disappears by then. And then at that point, she's left, oh, well, she has to do it herself now and come to those conclusions. Just because his ghost didn't stick around just for 30 seconds, just helps forge that dark future even more.
Yeah, I think those ghost scenes, they all take place like just after he's swallowed up by the time eddy, and the node takes him through the different points in the node's own history from when it ended up with what's her name, Audrey, and so that's how that works. But and then eventually manages to get back to the TARDIS, luckily. And I quite like the resolution in that a lot of Big Finish resolutions feel very dragged out for me, especially when it's this big box set. I feel like they go on far too long. This one, it's always the opposite. It goes very quickly. It's very much like the Doctor turns up and he's already worked out how to do it. But I do like that triumphant of it, where, like you were saying earlier, when he arrives, it's like, Audrey, I know now. And she's like, okay, let's go sort this out. It feels a bit too quick. This resolution they come up with felt a bit too easy for me. But at the same time, I prefer something like this to something really long and dragged out and constantly just going on. Like, I feel too many Big Finish box sets come to the problem of where it's just this like long 15-minute scene in one room.
Yeah, definitely can see your point there. Is that food file concluded? Should we do the ratings for it?
I think I have one thing just to
Okay.
say about the resolution. So obviously, again, this whole box set, it's got all of the Ninth Doctor's biggest moments referenced, and even lowest lows referenced, just to kind of recontextualize and remind you, the listener, of why you love the Ninth Doctor. And the ending he gets, I really loved it. It's very joyful. It returns back to his "Everybody Lives" moment in The Empty Child and Dr. Dances. And I really feel like we could have had one fix that really makes this ending stand out, with just a little bit of sadness to it, I guess. Which, I feel it's the fact that Nova is kind of made a victim of the whole situation, and the story doesn't really recognize it, because her entire agency is wiped out. Like, her entire experience with the Doctor is removed. It's wiped from the timeline. He should have been able to fit. I just feel there could have just been this line where he's like, I could save everything. I could fix this. But she would lose these days and her possible future, because
a bit like,
he's...
World War III then with Rose, like, save the world but lose you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again,
so there'd be a consequence, and then that would make why Everybody Lives in Dr. Dances stand out so much, because there is no consequences. Nobody dies. You're all alive. The kid's back. You've accepted your role as a mother. Everybody can now go forward. That's what makes it. There's no consequence to it. While I think here, they just needed that extra bit of drama and acknowledgement, because it's nearly there. It's nearly there. Just to kind of just ground the box set to have an engaging ending, to see where it's going to propel the Ninth Doctor forward as well.
Again, that's sort of a problem with Nova being not quite companion, not quite supporting character either. And she's floating in that weird bubble, so she doesn't necessarily justify that, but she sort of needs to justify that. Yeah. And also, it's sort of cheapened by the fact that at the end, for the Ninth Doctor at least, it goes back as if nothing's happened anyway. I think you needed a bit more sadness of Nova just being dismissive of him. I don't think the Ninth Doctor should have chased after her in the sense, not physically, he doesn't, but he's very much there trying to almost make her into a companion, and I think there needed to be something else there to make that work.
Because I suggested the ending to Ben, I think just before when we were setting up and testing everything, where he works out that she's a sci-fi fan. He makes sense of it. Audrey's the mastermind of time travel and stuff, and she's obviously mentioned all the holovids and stuff. It's like you were just a sci-fi fan. So I feel he could have just brushed her and said, "Look, I don't know you." He's like, "You don't know me, but I know you. Here are these, take these." And it's like a convention ticket on the other side of the galaxy, and with a ticket off the planet, because that's what she wants. She wanted to just leave. And then she says, and then he just leaves before she can say anything. She shouts out at him something like, "It says I own a house on this planet. What are you on about?" And then it ends. I think that would have been a lot more of an engaging ending than... I don't know. I just wasn't a huge fan of how cheery he was in the pub. It just didn't feel like the Ninth Doctor to me. Like, I get
needed something more somber.
I get the whole point is to be very light-hearted. But I feel that the box set already did its job with its tone of doing that. It just needed that drama, I guess. That's what I'm just trying to say, I guess. And that consequence, really. But yeah.
No, I definitely like that idea of the ending. Because it's a bit like Mystic Opera at the end of Voyage of the Damned, or, the Doctor giving Donna, her wedding, while her dad giving her, like, the lottery ticket. Something a bit like that, really.
Yeah, that's true. it's very fitting of RTD style, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas, yeah,
I just feel like we could have got there in another draft, really. But maybe just
Yeah.
circumstance made it just occur that way.
it's also awkward that the ending doesn't quite have the same connection for Nova because she hasn't gone through any of this.
Exactly.
And so having this long scene between the two of them, she just doesn't know any of the stuff she's just been through, just doesn't work as well as I think Nick wanted it to.
Definitely agree.
Yeah.
Should we move
I
on
think
to...
one more.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, just one more note on Cataclysm as a whole. Like James was saying about the moment where they're all in the TARDIS looking out of the vortex, and I think it's got some great moments like that Cataclysm didn't have as many of. Where we've got all these people together in the TARDIS, and we've got this real, like, not crew in a sense because they're definitely all temporary, but this sort of camaraderie coming along, and I love the moments where they're all bonding, and you've got the Doctor saying he's a mildly incompetent military captain, but he does his best, and I think there's just something beautiful about those little moments that they have there. And it's something that almost maybe comes along too late in the box set because we never get to do much with these characters after that. Like, it's too late. The story's about to wrap up. We get some awkward stuff as they're like charging towards the TARDIS to fix everything, but ends up not fixing everything. But yeah, there's something awkward about those scenes for me as well. That would be a negative for me, like when they lose the Doctor. That feels a bit like the story's treading water as it goes towards the finale, and I think you probably could have cut some of that in the middle there. I know I was just saying I wanted more of these characters, but actually what we did get with them when the Ninth Doctor wasn't around didn't necessarily work for me, and it didn't feel earned either, although there are some good lines mixed in there. So there are, every cloud has a silver lining. It has its up and downs, but I would say that middle part, along with that little end bit with Nova, is the weakest part of Food Fight for me. But then, one last note about the Ravagers themselves. We were talking about their voice earlier. I do love that voice. I love the little moments they get with the Ninth Doctor. I love, again, they tie into that theme of they're just victims of circumstance. They just want something to eat. It's just unfortunate that everyone else is on the menu. And so I love the Doctor relating to them in that sense and not condemning them for it necessarily, but very much being like, I've still got to stop you because this is unfair on everyone else, and ends up coming up with a solution that's great for everyone. But yeah, just that voice, it works so well. It's very childlike, and so you have this innocence behind it on that, where they just want to eat. They don't want to cause anyone harm. It's just unfortunate that that's what happens when they eat. So I think, yeah, that works very well for it as well. And again, thematically, it all comes together there with all these different characters just being, again, victims of circumstance, really.
I'm not sure if you'll remember, but they remind me a lot of the fairies in Small Worlds in Torchwood.
Ah.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that, actually, yeah. Yeah, definitely can. Are we all ready to do the ratings? Are we all satisfied with Food Fight now? We've had our bit of...
Do you have anything to interject, Adam? I mean, me and James have had our little interruption of Ben as he was about to move on to the ratings. I think it's only fair you get your shot.
I don't think I could add to what you guys have said. You guys, that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Right, 5 on to the ratings for Food Fight. So, Adam, you moment to shine. What do you make of Food Fight?
Oh man, I have 2 different ratings. Okay, so there's one for Food Fight, and then there's one for the how you're a nerd line. So I'll go 7.
Okay.
The Food Fight rating, and then I'll have to go. I feel like 11's a bit too low, so I'm going to have to go with 20 out of 10 for the nerd line.
I think that's a fair rating for that line. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, I think you just analysed that right, that line. Yeah. Alright, Luke, how about yourself?
I'm going to say 7.5 for Food Fight.
Okay. James?
Oh, I don't know. don't know because I
All
think
right, moving on.
no. Well, I think the vibes return in this set. Obviously, not as good as the first time of the story of an episode being catered to having Eccleston back, but it definitely allows to give him some drama and just grounds him just a little bit and humanizes him in a way. I was very convinced I was going 7 out of 10, but I think after hearing you two, I think I can maybe push a 7.5. I think for this.
Okay.
I like the way it wrapped up, I guess.
I'm going to join both James and Luke on this. I'm going to give it a 7.5. But my least favourite, I still had a lot of
I
fun
put
with it.
mine up.
All right, go on. Let's have a full house.
All right, we might as well all end on a 7.5.
Are we going to get the overall set rating as well?
Yeah, we're gonna do that now. So let's do a little cheeky transition to that we're saying now. So off we go. Right, on to the overall rating. So did it quench your 2005 first for Eccleston? Was it one of those ones which you just left a little curiosity if, what if Christopher Eccleston joined Big Finish? So Adam.
This is a really big question, but I will say yes, it does do that. I think it's really down to Eccleston. I think he absolutely threw himself back into the role. Reminded us what we loved about the Ninth Doctor, whilst also expanding. Doing extra with the comedy, doing extra with the drama, being sort of and being and. The story being told in a different kind of context to series 1, I suppose. There's a whole new, as they said, the Ninth Doctor. And yeah, I think genuinely for what they were trying to do, it was amazing. And it's strange because the whole thing reminded me. I met Eccleston at a book signing for the I Love the Bones of You, and there was a guy in front of me, and the guy asked, will you ever do Big Finish? And then Chris replied, no, I don't think so. So it's weird to sort of see that, and then flash forward here and be like, wow, it's started, it's actually happened. I think the stage is really set, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what future writers do with the Ninth Doctor, what voices they give. Now that we've had Nick's, and I suppose it did remind me just a little bit of the first War Doctor box set as well, because that was all written by Nick as well. Sort of bringing the War Doctor into Big Finish. It's different kind of worlds and different kind of story, but that kind of, you have one writer writing the 3 stories, all kind of interconnected with each other, 1 3-hour epic. I think it probably for War Doctor, if I have to say, but this is still very exceptional audio drama, cast on point. Everything was generally grand, and we got the cover and everything as well. And like the more details we have for the further adventures, the more I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm absolutely ready for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say a little quick point. If anybody's watching got any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll answer them once we've finished our little roundup, because I think we're going to be here for a long time. So, yeah, just give you a chance to get your questions in now. I mean, it still feels very surreal holding the CD. It just feels like a bit of sacred text, And this is
you lucky bugger. Mine's not arrived yet.
It's very surreal holding the vine. Oh wait,
yeah. It's holding somewhere. It just feels like it is a piece of Big Finish history, and I think that's why you want to pick it up, because it is a slice of history, really, isn't it? This is Nick Brigg. This is the Ninth Doctor's Creatures of Beauty, in the sense that it's not really a linear story, but you're starting at part 3 and you're working your way backwards throughout the story to get to part 3 again. It's a bit like that, how Creatures of Beauty is like part 1, part 1's episode 4 and stuff like that. It does have sort of, like Adam said, it is a little bit like the War Doctor, with the sort of the juice drinking, and there's a planet called Talisha in the War Doctor, The Innocents, there's like a species called the Tals or something like that, isn't there? From memory.
I
mean, I think
the evil one.
Yeah,
ones that allied themselves to the Daleks.
Yeah, I think that's the evil one.
Yeah, it rings a bell.
Yeah. So I think this box set is definitely worth getting solely because of Chris, because he's having a lot of fun, and I think that rubs off to you. So you automatically have a lot of fun because the energy is just very infectious, and you just become so happy and joyous, and it just fills my heart with joy having new Eccleston. I mean, if you want a slice of authentic 2005, you're not going to get it in this box set. Like I said, this is more what if Eccleston was in Series 2. I'm sure there'll be another 3 box sets to get that authentic slice of 2005, but as a box set, it's worth getting just for the simple fact that it is Big Finish history, really. So, Luke, what would you sort of overall thoughts on the box set?
Yeah, like you say, it really is Eccleston that's the main draw here. You're not getting a incredible story. Not to say that it's a bad story by any means. It's a very fun story. It's not going to be something you go away from thinking, "Oh, that's the best Big Finish we've ever heard." It's something that it knows what it's got to do. It's got to reintroduce Christopher Eccleston, really showcase his Doctor. I think that's what this story does well. It's a showcase of the Ninth Doctor. It's about going on this adventure, having a fun time with him. And I just love it for that. And I love Christopher Eccleston's performance in it. He gives it 110%. There's so many good little moments to love. And, the plot overall, it comes together nicely, I would say. Nothing perfect, nothing grand or amazing, but just something fun and good, really. So overall, I would give Ravagers an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll agree with that score. I'd give Ravagers an 8 out of 10 as well. Yeah, James, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of what I expected it to be, but it went above and beyond in some places as well. Mainly, again, that sequence with the Ravagers that I really love. I think it's probably my favourite moment from the set. The more I think about it, the way he just kind of empathises with them is like, if it's the last thing I do, I will bring back the sweetness. I'm like, oh, that's great. So yeah, I think it's a good slice of 2005. But it doesn't recreate it. Right, it's a good slice of 2005 from a nostalgic perspective. However, I think it lacked a lot of what made Series 1 special, which I think is fair to say, because the whole series was centered around Rose, and that's, for me, that's what it is. It was a story about humanity and compassion and learning to talk and heal. Especially think a topic among men as well that is being worked on, especially in our modern society, just being able to talk and stuff. And I think that's why Series 1, I think, just holds such a special place in my heart in that way. Again, yeah, I liked it as a set that brings back Christopher Eccleston. However, I feel I would be happy if we went like another year without another set, just so we could have time to get Billy in, because that's what I want to listen to now. I think that's what I want to experience, because we've had the reminder. I think it's time for the big guns now. Do you know what I mean? But of course, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the next 3 sets. I am just a little bit worried if the solo night stuff is going to run out of steam a little bit for me, because it's half of an experience. You've got the Doctor, but you don't have Rose in it, and I think that's kind of where it falls a little bit for me. But very enjoyable. Definitely pick it up. I think it's a bit like Storm Warning. I think that's such a good way to compare it to any audio, really. The coming of a Doctor that I feel you need to listen to. Yeah, it's probably not an exceptionally great story. Yeah, I think it's also got a perfect tone. I think both of them have as well. That I think you'll grasp, especially on your first and especially second listen. And it's a very easy second listen to as well. I actually expect to revisit Sphere of Freedom a lot, just as like a casual comfort kind of listen. Because I don't have an audio like that I can just stick on and repeat and listen to, but I feel I can do that with Sphere. But yeah, I think this box set, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I'm really looking forward to where they go next. I just hope they push boundaries, and yeah, I am very much looking forward to when we can get Billy back, because I think that's going to be a very necessary component that will really, I think a lot of people, I hope a lot of people will realize once we get Rose and the Doctor in our ears, we'd be like, okay, yeah, now it's truly back.
Yeah,
I think
feel
a word
like-
you use.
I'll go, Luke.
Yeah, I was going to say a word you use a lot, James, is vibe. You know, you really vibe the story. And I think that's something that this set really is. It's just vibing with it and having a good time with it. Even if when you're super critical of it, there are a lot of things you could pick apart, a lot of flaws you can see, like we have done. It doesn't mean that we can't just stick it on and just really enjoy it and enjoy the ride and enjoy the feel and tone that it has going for it.
Yeah, precisely.
I mean, I feel like we're all a bit like the Ravagers in the sense that we've got a little bit of sweetness. We want the full sweetness when Billy joins, but for now, this is a nice bit of sweetness to keep us going until we get proper 9 in rows. Not to detract from this box set or the next 3 box sets, because it's wonderful to have Christopher Eccleston back.
Precisely, yeah.
We keep saying, but it feels like a fever dream. I feel like we shouldn't be here at this point, but we are, and I'm really happy to have the person who got me into the show. To experience new Ninth Doctor content, because Series 1, Ninth Doctor content in general is so sparse. So to have a set of 12 new stories with the Ninth Doctor is just so big, really. We had, 6 books, a few comics, and a series. That's all we had to enjoy the Ninth Doctor, and now we have this, so it feels a great occasion, really.
It feels like we could definitely get at least another decade, or at least half a decade, at most a decade of Ninth Doctor content. I'd love that so much. I think there's lots to do. I think that's what it's doing. It's pacing itself.
Yeah, and I think something you said earlier, Ben, was relating it to the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 1, where that felt playing it very safe. And I think I'm glad they went in a different direction in this. Not only the fact that it's one long story, but also that it's not quite just trying to feel like something that can easily slot into Series 1, whereas those adventures felt so almost painfully Series 4 in what they were trying to do, that it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel natural for me. And so I feel like this is a much better introduction for a Doctor into Big Finish, into this world, where it's doing its own thing with it, doing its own spin, still calling back to very much having a similar feel to Series 1, but not trying to replicate everything that Series 1 was and ending up with instead a diet version of Series 1, I suppose. And then eventually, when we do, they're carving their own era at the moment. And so now, eventually, when we do get Billy back, hopefully alongside Eccleston, we have them both there, it'll again feel like this big event, and we can have another joyous occasion where something special is happening and we're turning to Series 1. And hopefully, by that time, they'll be able to work out in a way that doesn't replicate what 10th Doctor Adventure Series Volume 1 did, where it was very just cliche, I guess.
Yeah,
and
you sort of
very
want a dark
very
universe instead of Ninth Doctor Adventures Volume 1 with Rose. You want to kickstart with a bit more oomph to it.
Yeah, and so hopefully that the less pressure of that will mean that Ninth Doctor and Rose together will be something special and will also be done justice rather than just being rushed out as the first thing they do with Chris.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that this is definitely going to be one of Big Finish's most popular releases, definitely of this year, and possibly one of their biggest sellers of all time, maybe, really. I think that this is definitely introduced a lot of new people into Big Finish.
It's crazy, isn't it, with the Ninth Doctor himself as a whole? I feel there was a lot of jokes about skipping 9, or you can skip 9, you can just go straight to 10th Doctor, that's where the series gets good. That's more of a Tumblr fan thing, I suppose. But the Ninth Doctor himself has very much been underappreciated a lot of time. He's very much been in the shadow of David Tennant and even Matt Smith as well when it comes to the new series Doctors. But now, I almost feel like we're what the prequel fans of Star Wars had when those stories finally came into the light in a way and people gained a new appreciation for them. I feel like it's not quite the same because obviously Series 1 is much more well regarded than the prequels were at the time, but the Ninth Doctor himself sort of has this weird relationship that feels like It's finally all coming together, and now the Ninth Doctor is, in a way, more popular than any other Doctor has been. I feel, which is bizarre. Certainly, like in this, in our fan bubble, I guess. Like, there's no way we can speak for the outside bubble. Like, I think most people will probably still say David Tennant is their favorite Doctor, which is fair enough. Yeah, everyone is entitled to that opinion. But for us inside our little bubble, it now feels like Christopher Eccleston is getting the love and praise and attention he deserves.
Yeah, but he's not our Doctor, he's everyone's Doctor, if that makes sense, really.
Yeah, that's what's that.
It was so lovely the day these stories dropped on Twitter, the amount of outpouring and love for Chris. He was even trending, which is great, and in Big Finish trending, it just shows how much of a footprint Chris has made onto Big Finish and an impact. So it just shows how old of a release this is and how much of an occasion this is. If you haven't checked out Ravagers, and definitely don't miss the occasion of it, really.
And I think also when it comes to appreciation, I think with the established classic series fan, I think they view Series 1 as another series of Doctor Who. They view the context of the Doctor meeting monsters as if it was Tom Baker meeting monsters. I hope they really go back and rewatch Series 1, not in the context of it being Doctor Who, but in the context of it being a television drama, and just analyse why it was so successful, the stuff it does differently, and just how not similar to the classic series it is. It truly changed the game for how British television talks to a younger audience and respects them, which then led on to programming such as Sarah Jane Adventures. It paved the way, and along with, I think, it set up a lot of how do we call it? It set up a lot of ventures to explore such topics as male mental health, sexuality, and LGBTQ topics that I don't feel, because it set it up as a platform for the show to then explore them more, and I don't think they've ever gone back to it. And I think that's a shame now in 2021 that we've never still had a companion who is full-time, who is gay, and has a meaningful gay relationship. We've never had that. We've had Bill, but we've never got to see Bill have that meaningful relationship. And who knows, I think once we look back at Series 1 and what it tried to teach us, maybe then we can get such things as a transgender companion and a gay couple in the TARDIS, things like that really to feel truly 21st century, because that's what Series 1 was all about. Bringing Doctor Who into the 21st century, reflecting modern life, and just having fun with it all.
I think that's quite a beautiful way to end, in a way. I think that's a poignant way to wrap us all up for this evening.
Yeah, James says, don't view Series 1 as a Doctor Who fan, view it as a film scholar.
Using that degree to his benefit for our little stream.
Do we want to have a quick chat about respond to all calls?
Yeah, please do.
Drag it on even longer.
I mean, again, if you've got any questions, then please do put them in the chat and we'll get around to them once we finish respond to all calls. So we've got our next instalment of the Ninth Doctor in August, isn't it? With Volume 2.
Yeah.
We've got 3 stories, one by Lisa McCullen, the other by Tim Foley, and one by Timothy Exatak, I think. So, again, I presume we're all going to pick it up because it's Eccleston. So, are you excited for this box set? So, Adam?
Yeah, I am. 3 new writers bringing their own 3 different kind of perspectives for the Ninth Doctor. That's kind of really cool. I do hope, because I feel bad for this box set in a way, because obviously Volume 3 will have the Cybermen, Volume 4 will have the Brigadier. I always kind of hope that, this box set also, in a way, still gets that kind of. I think a lot of people will still buy it because it's like the second lot of Eccleston, but at the same time, I don't know because I feel like each box set's probably going to have its own unique kind of identity to it. Whether people might sort of buy, maybe they bought the first one to jump on, maybe they skip 2 and go straight to 3, or like whether they start like maybe picking and choosing box sets, because like obviously with Big Finish, everything's sort of becoming a box set sort of nowadays, and unless you're following like a box set arc like the Eighth Doctor stuff or the Dark Universe, where it is like a proper kind of arc, these kind of box sets of like their own individual stories, or even like a box set that is like this one, like a 3-hour epic, like. But from what I heard, that little clip is really interesting, and I think they're going to be new. I think it's going to be experimental, from what I can kind of gather, which is really going to be fascinating listen. And I do wonder. I don't know when it will come into it, but like the Macbeth stuff, like that, quite fascinated me. So I'm wondering whether that's going to be a volume 2 thing, or maybe it'll be something a bit later. But either way, yeah, I'm picking it up along with other bunch of, spending lots of money on like the upcoming big finishes, along with finishing off the Dalek universe and starting to get other even do you know what I was going to say, for us 2005 fans, not only have we got the Ninth Doctor, we've also got a Russell T Davies story to look forward to as well, like with the mind of the Hodiak, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So I really feel like this could be our year, and like it's about 10th Doctor's 9th Doctor 10th Doctor, and even Russell T Davies story. So we really have prevailed. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Volume 2, Respond to All Calls, feels like what the Ninth Doctor Adventures Volume 1 would have been if it was 5 years ago, maybe. I feel like it does feel very much like Volume 1, a starting point of the Ninth Doctor. The standalone stories, but I think Lisa McCullen's story, the concept sounds fantastic. It seems like a story you'll see in like the old Doctor Who storybooks from like 2006, 2007. I think they ran up until 2010, actually, the storybooks, didn't they? They feel like a nice little urban little one to see, because I remember them being quite an urban one in the Rose and 10th Doctor one, so I feel like that story feels very much of the same ilk as one of those storybook stories you'd see. The writers, Tim Foley's done wonderful stuff. He did wonderful character drama with Dissected, and the bits within the Gulf that I've listened to, the Third Doctor Adventure, sounds fantastic. And did he do Tropical Beaches and Other Soundscapes?
Yes, he did.
So he's capable of doing something a little bit experimental, so I think that'd be quite exciting. And Timothy X Attack has done 2 good stories from what I've listened to. The Wreck of Titan? Not Wreck of Titan, Wreck of the World, and Jonah, the Time War story. Both stories I enjoy. So, Luke, how do you feel about Volume 2?
Yeah, I am very excited to see where we go now that we're getting 3 separate stories rather than one long one over 3 episodes. And I think what's quite nice about that is that even if you're feeling a bit off about one episode, you can go into the next one fresh. You don't have it carrying over what you had before. And so I like that change of pace. I like that with this series, the Ninth Doctor, we're not just sticking to the same format for each release, we're keeping it fresh. Great selection of writers as well. Lisa McMullen has done some wonderful stuff. And yeah, like the concept, Girl Deconstructed is the one we know the most about. We got that clip from it. It seems very domestic, very 2005. And I can't wait to dive into that one and see, hear what it's all about, and really get into that and get into exploring this much more contained, smaller character piece after this big bombastic universe in danger Ravagers storyline. And then the next 2, Fright Motif and Planet of the Dead, we don't know quite as much about, but Tim Foley, at least, I am quite a fan of as a writer. Timothy X Attack, there has been, you said Wreck of the World and Jonah. One was a hit for me, one was a miss, so hopefully he will come back strong with that one. But it's hard to say too much about those last 2 because we don't know quite what they're going to be about just yet. I have a feeling that based on the title, that Fright motif is going to be the musicians playing dangerous games in Paris that we heard in the trailer, and Planet of the End sounds like it might be the Necropolis, which we've had a few Necropolises in Big Finish recently. Like we had the War Master, what is it? Hearts of Darkness, and also kind of Ghosts as well, the 10th Doctor and River Song story. So it feels like a setting that we might be overdoing a bit, but hopefully he'll find a way to explore a new avenue of that and make it feel fresh still. So yeah, I am excited to see where we go next. Like Adam says, it doesn't quite have a drawing factor that the other three do. Like we've got Brig, we've got Cybermen, Ravagers, it's the first Ninth Doctor story. This one, it'll be interesting to see how well it goes down, or if it'll just be like a footnote on the way to the Cybermen.
Definitely a good point, Matt. James, how about yourself?
I feel I've already voiced.
Yeah.
I think my excitement for this earlier on, but yeah, no, I'm very excited. I am because I love the writer selection that they've chosen. Because two of them I know grew up. At least I know grew up on this era of Doctor Who, and it really inspired them to become writers. And I feel that's a very, I don't know, as a 2005 lover, it's a very empowering thing to feel like, oh wow, this is like this. There's a line by Christopher Eccleston in Confidential, and it's like, if you give kids good stuff, they will grow up and they will demand good stuff. And that's like my favourite quote of anything ever. And I feel we're now seeing the impact of how good Series 1 was, that the fact that those teenagers who watched that programme and got their good stuff can now write good stuff for people to enjoy good stuff. And then it creates the endless cycle of creativity. It's beautiful. But yeah, no, I don't know too much about Timothy X ATAC, unfortunately. But no, I'm looking forward to it all. Especially Fright Motif. That sounds like a great title, that. But yeah, I think Girl Deconstruct, I think I'm most looking forward to. Because Lisa McMullen, I just love Touch Thing. That's great audio. And I always love her tone of her audios as well. I think she's got a great tone and strand and such as well. So yeah, very much looking forward to as well. And you were saying that Tim Foley did the golf, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's got a great kind of fear factor to that story as well. The way that as the threat climbs through the window and the cliffhanger of part 1, very, very eerie. But yeah,
he does a lot of horror stories, doesn't he? Like his Tortured Ones as well. He's quite he's a writer of creepy, unsettling things.
And I think that's going to be a great environment for Chris to really stretch his acting abilities, I think, because I don't really think he ever got that in Series 1, thinking about it. He got very atmospheric, creepy in Empty Child, but I don't think he ever got like full-on kind of like almost horror, so I guess we'll see where we go with that.
Unquiet Dead, I'd say, is quite
that is true.
Especially as a young child, that was horrifying stuff for me, at least.
Ben has very funny stories about that, so watching that story.
Yeah, that was like my first proper this is scary, man. I mean, do you want me to tell the story? Or
I mean, if you want.
Yeah, alright, I'll tell the story because it's a Ninth Doctor stream, so it's a celebration of 9. Like I said, it was the story what gave me the heebie-jeebies for many years. And me and my friend, he came over to my house and we were like, right, we're going to watch a Doctor Who story. And we thought, because we're big boys, we watched Unquiet Dead because we're old now, we're mature. We were, I think, how old were we? About 9. So we're like, right, we're sticking Unquiet Dead on. And within the space of Mrs. P strangling her grandson, we were out the room and we couldn't. So we didn't watch Unquiet Dead in the end, sadly. So that is the Unquiet Dead I've got a real love for and strong affection for because it was the first story what properly made, I wanted to watch it, I kept channel hopping and I kept watching it, but I had to keep changing over because it just scared the heck out of me. So Unquiet Dead, special story for me in that regard. There we go.
Yeah.
I suppose while we're on the topic of funny stories about scary Ninth Doctor episodes, I have a similar one with the Empty Child and Dr. Dances, actually, it's just come to mind. It's not quite well watching the episode itself, but it's more, when your kid's on the playground, you really latch onto these gimmicks. And I think that's something that RTD did very well when he brought it back, giving the Cybermen the delete catchphrase. Things like that for children to really grasp onto and play with. And, are you my mummy? We used to play like tag or family tag like that a lot, where you go around chasing each other saying, are you my mummy? And then catch someone else and they join in and have to catch everyone. And so one time when playing that I think we had friends around, we were in my garden, and I was sort of like climbing up a tree to get away from people and had a bit of a fall, whacked my head, had to be rushed to hospital for stitches. But that is a amusing memory I have, thanks to the Ninth Doctor. Thanks to the Ninth Doctor and the Empty Child.
Yeah, bit of Ninth Doctor nostalgia there to end the stream.
Yeah.
I think
Feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, it gives us
About my head cracking open.
What more could you want on a Saturday tea time in 2005 all over again? Yeah, I think we're all wrapped up on the Ninth Doctor now. I think we've had our little fix of Eccleston until August. Well, me and James have got a little side project involving the Ninth Doctor, which will be hopefully out in a couple of weeks. Time, which will be quite exciting. But more on that later. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, my lovely guests, Adam, James and Luke, for joining me this evening to talk about the Ninth Doctor Ravagers.
Thank you for putting up with our ramblings and my constant cuts onto what you're about to talk about anyway.
No, I'm used to it now. It's been, 7 years, so I'm used to it now at this point. I'm like, he's off on this little tangent, man. Let him go on. Right, so
I feel like I'm a dog at the moment. Let him play it. Let him have a run around. Let him play. Let him burn his energy off.
Let him have his moment. So thank you very much, everyone. Hopefully you've enjoyed this stream. If you've enjoyed Ravagers, then fantastic. If you haven't listened to it, then go on, check it out. Have a bit of slice of Eccleston. It will definitely spice your life up. And then get a little bit of Big Finish history. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. And we'll see you very soon for another Big Finish Phantom.
Yeah.
Season 8 live.